Castle of Black Iron. By Drunken Tiger. Chapter 351, Performance. Due to Zhang Tie's personality, he would not deny what she said immediately, neither would he easily be screwed over by a girl. The moment Zhang Tie was going to explain it, one of the guys, who was walking towards him in tidy clothes like an elite, pointed at Zhang Tie with an angry expression. "Nana, who's that brat? Are you hiding from me because of him? This is my husband. This kind of tender, little man is my dish, so what?" Raising her head, that girl called Nana threw a contemptuous glance at that man. That man then fixed his eyes onto Nana and revealed a sudden smile. "I know, you must be annoying me on purpose. Why are you still so naive? How could you like some little kid? F***ck. This dad doesn't talk and you take me as a waxwork in the exhibition hall?" Zhang Tai swore inside as he instantly put his arm around Nana's slim waist and hugged her into his own chest. Meanwhile, he forcefully kissed her face and looked at that man in an aggressive way. "Baby, who's that guy? He's so talkative, I've not heard you talk about him before. I know you only care about driving your red rabbit all day long. Why not tell me such an important thing?" With a wisp of amazement and shame, that girl then responded with a smile. "I'm sorry, honey. I just didn't want you to worry about me. I won't do it anymore." With a sound of paw, Zhang Tai patted on her butt and pretended to glare at her out of fury and rudeness. "That's my girl." After being smacked on her butt, the girl immediately raised her eyebrows, but in a split second, she recovered her smile and buried her head onto Zhang Tai's chest as she pretended to be bashful. "Bad man, so many people are watching." Heh, it depends on whether you could take good care of me tonight." Zhang Tai rubbed her butt with hand at the same time. "It feels really great." Zhang Tai yelled inside. "You big, bad wolf. Don't talk about it here. We'll talk about it back in bedroom." The girl further lowered her head as she twisted her body and moved Zhang Tai's hand away from her butt. At the same time, she forcefully pinched Zhang Tai's lower back. "What else? Aren't you women being used to warm up beds and deliver kids? We will talk about delivering kids later. Are you wanting me to treat you like a princess or something? No crap. I will show you my power tonight." Zhang Tai then glanced at that man, who looked about 27 years old, who had been stunned so much and behaved like a playboy. "Learn more from me, uncle. It's Black Iron Age. Flowers delivery, wealth show, inviting girls for dinner, or pretending to care about them have become out of date. You. Being heavily insulted, that man pointed at Zhang Tai with a shaking hand and could almost not utter a sound. Seeing their owner behaving that way, the two tough bodyguards beside that man walked forward and drew close to Zhang Tai. "Mister, do you need any help?" Seeing it becoming a bit tense at the entrance of the lift, some security personnel in black uniform of the hotel had already walked towards them. The one uttered was a bald-headed black man. He was tall, calm and polite, which forced the two bodyguards of the impulsive man to calm down. Looking at the security personnel, the guy who had almost gone out of his mind called back his two bodyguards. "Nana, you really disappoint me too much. How come you like such a kid?" With this word, he ferociously glared at Zhang Tai. After that man waved at his bodyguards and left. Seeing that man and his lackeys leave, the security guard who asked just now glanced at Zhang Tai and that girl called Nana. He then immediately knew it was because of love affairs. Therefore, he left with the other security personnel. Not until they all left did that girl who had been hugging Zhang Tai like an innocent girl started to look solemn. "You be ****, let me go." Staring at Zhang Tai, that girl forcefully patted Zhang Tai's hand off. Zhang then sniffed forcefully. "This girl smells really good. If I didn't hug you, could you've fooled him? I've not even asked you for the performance fee. You've taken advantage of me so much, yet you are asking me for a performance fee? I stirred up an enemy because of your casual words. I might be beaten to death the moment I go out of the hotel. That guy looks like a narrow-minded man. Beauty is dangerous." After staring Zhang Tai several seconds, that girl suddenly burst out a laughter. well, we're even. You have nice driving skills. Where did you learn those skills? We can have a match one day. Sorry, I've not played such a naive game since I was 7, I'm not interested in it. I'm on my way to dinner, make way please. Zhang Tai directly walked towards the dining hall. Looking at Zhang Tai, the girl called Nana became still. Watching Zhang Tai's shadow, she looked curious and interested. After leisurely eating a grand supper in the dining hall, Zhang Tai returned to his room. It's already the 3rd day since I soaked the lotus seeds of fiery flame red lotus into liquor. According to my master, I could eat them today. After arranging his personal belongings in the room, Zhang Tai carried his backpack by hand and entered Castle of Black Iron as he focused his attention onto the arched door in his mind. At this moment, it was also dark in Castle of Black Iron, but it was not too late. What amazed Zhang Tai was that Aegon, Edward, and Aziz were burning a bonfire in the courtyard beside those houses. They were roasting corn cobs, making the aroma fill the air. Seeing Zhang Tai coming in, they hurriedly ran towards Zhang Tai and kissed Zhang Tai's shoes. Castle Lord, your loyal servant Aegon is waiting for your orders. Castle Lord, your loyal servant Edward is waiting for your orders. Castle Lord, your loyal servant Aziz is waiting for your orders. The 3 guys said one after another as if they'd reached an agreement in advance. These days, Zhang Tai always entered Castle of Black Iron late at night when the 3 guys had fallen asleep, therefore, he rarely saw them. At the sight of the 3 diligent guys this time, Zhang Tai felt pretty good. What are you doing there? My lord, we are roasting popcorns. They are very yummy. Aegon explained honestly. When Aegon replied, Aziz had already taken a well-roasted popcorn from the bonfire. After patting off the ash from it, he gave it to Zhang Tai in a flattery way. Seeing their expecting eyes, Zhang Tai didn't hesitate at all. Instead, he held the popcorn and peeled off its black skin and corn silk before engulfing it. With only one mouthful, Zhang Tai became a bit still. Wow, this is really yummy. At least, I've not tasted such a great, yummy food before. Is this the taste of corn from Castle of Black Iron? Eating it, Zhang Tai felt a bit shameful as he had not inquired about the grain's production in Castle of Black Iron for a long time. He could see the good, tidy fields, which were reclaimed by Aegon, Aziz, and Edward. Various crops were growing well inside the fields. Nice, very yummy. You guys are doing well, you're good people and you've done nice farming work. Zhang Tai patted their shoulders which made them quiver all over due to excitement. Arg, Castle Lord praised me. Aegon was so happy that he danced with joy. Castle Lord patted my shoulder. Edward looked like having hit the jackpot. I grew that corn cob. Aziz jumped off the ground and turned 2 somersaults in the air. Is that so exciting? Zhang Tai watched his hands. Is my hand that magical? You created them. The meaning of their existence is to please Castle Lord. Any of your praise and admiration would make them very happy as it would lubricate their souls and wisdom and indicate your greatest affirmation to our work. Heller appeared beside Zhang Tai with a smile. I know. Zhang Tai also became happy as he passed his backpack to Heller. Put it in the equipment room, I will use it in a few days. Yes, sir. Speaking of equipment room, I want to remind Castle Lord that our rooms are in short supply as all the grain's warehouse have been filled. No more grain is available. Arg. Hearing this news, Zhang Tai became a bit amazed. What should we do then? There are 2 methods. First, I accelerate the growth of a batch of woods in Castle of Black Iron using Reiki. Then, I will have Edward build some rooms using the logs, but pines, parasols are not of good quality. If I accelerate their growth using Reiki, it would be a waste. Therefore, I hope Castle Lord could bring in some proper woods, such as blueberry, teakwood, nanmu, sanders, Korean pine, and ash trees, as houses built of these woods would be more durable and better looking. What about the second method? As long as Castle Lord can accumulate enough basic energy storage, you could directly form a mountain with many caves using the space and terrain creation system. That would cost you less time. Hearing this method, Zhang Tai felt being a poor again. He just forced a smile. No need to be that hurry, I will bring in some woods. for basic energy, I will increase it. You know, I've been a bit busy recently. I understand, at your will, my lord. Zhang Tai then hurriedly ran into his lab. The color of the liquor inside the glass bottle truly had become bloody, deep red like fire. Opening its lid, Zhang Tai forcefully sniffed that special taste from inside and felt his battle chi being ignited. Is this the function of the seeds of fiery flame red lotus? That's too powerful. Chapter 352, Night Viewing Ability. The fiery flame red lotus seeds in the liquor released an alluring fragrance. Lifting the bottle, Zhang Tai watched the red liquid for a while. He then gritted his teeth and started to drink it forcefully. Curiously, the taste of the liquor had been diluted as the liquid tasted extremely bitter, instead of pungent. Besides, its taste had a sort of chilliness that almost penetrated in Zhang Tai's bones. At that moment, the seeds which were as hard as steel beads a few days ago had become crispy like Chinese chestnuts. Zhang Tai directly chewed all 10 seeds and swallowed them all, causing a sound of kacha, kacha. Soon after he drank the bitter, icy liquid, Zhang Tai felt his stomach burning like the external combustion chamber of the steam-driven external combustion engine. At the same time, he felt his body temperature rising rapidly. Remembering his master's warning, Zhang Tai swallowed all the liquid in the bottle very quickly, then, he yelled and rushed out of the lab. In less than half a minute, Zhang Tai had felt his body burning. Even his iron blood battle chi had been triggered and formed a battle chi totem of a huge centipede. As Zhang Tai ran, he kept peeling off his clothes. Like a mad cow whose tail was burned, in a wink of eye, he had rushed 100 m away. Yelling weirdly, he then dove into that fresh water lake inside the castle of black iron naked, like a meteor, causing a 10 m higher spray. Aegon, Aziz, and Edward were really stunned. They hurriedly collected Zhang Tai's clothes and shoes as they rushed towards that lake at the same time. When they arrived at the lake, under the gloomy light and darkness, they saw Zhang Tai radiating a crimson light several meters below the water like a piece of red-hot iron. Meanwhile, a wisp of steam was rising above the water. "Castle Lord, are you okay?" Aegon asked out of concern. Heller's eyes radiated a gleaming light. After watching Zhang Tai for a while, he waved his head. "He's fine, Castle Lord has just accomplished a round of fabulous evolution." Hearing Heller's reply, Aegon, Aziz, and Edward all let out a sigh. Although the others were worried about him, Zhang Tai was very cozy. When the burning heat was absorbed by the icy lake at night, it warmed the surrounding air, which firstly drilled into his heart. After warming Zhang Tai's heart and making it feel very comfortable, it drilled into Zhang Tai's spleen, then his kidney. After circling around his kidney twice, it went back to Zhang Tai's mind and mingled with his spiritual energy. After his spiritual energy mingled with that weird strength for a while, Zhang Tai had a weird feeling. Although the total amount of his spiritual energy didn't increase, it became more stable while that swirl of his spiritual energy in his mind felt a bit tranquil. Out of Zhang Tai's mind, that warm energy started to penetrate into Zhang Tai's eyes from inside to the outside. When that warmth entered Zhang Tai's ocular tissue, Zhang Tai didn't feel warm anymore, but icy, but it still made his eyes very comfortable. The icy feeling came from a mysterious point inside his brain, in line with the middle place between his eyebrows. Zhang Tai was immersed in water in this comfortable way for 3 hours. 3 hours later. With a sound of walla, Zhang Tai exposed his head out of the water and heavily panted, breathing in the castle of black iron's fresh air. At this time, Zhang Tai saw the castle of black iron in a completely new light. When he jumped into lake, it was dark in castle of black iron while everything in the darkness was obscure. However, at this moment, everything in his eyes was different. It was like the sunset scene in castle of black iron. In the background of bright shadows and space that slightly radiated a golden color, everything was clearly presented in Zhang Tai's eyes, the visual effect of which was much better than that of night viewing medicament. When he used a vial of night viewing medicament, he felt like he was wearing a layer of thick yellowish-green glass. With that night viewing effect, he could clearly see an object's shape, yet he could not identify the object's colors easily. However, now, Zhang Tai could easily and clearly identify the colors of the plants in the castle of black iron. What was more, Zhang Tai found that his visual ability had become much better than before, as he could see objects clearly at a longer distance. Within the blink of an eye, Zhang Tai felt a mysterious connection between the spiritual energy in his mind and his eyes. If his spiritual energy was a lake at this moment, the water in this lake was irrigating his eyes through a fine water pipe. Zhang Tai tried to turn off the water pipe of spiritual energy. He then opened his eyes and found everything became dark like before. Aegon, Edward and Aziz were holding torches and watching him out of concern. "Castle Lord, are you all right?" Zhang Tai then turned on that water pipe of spiritual energy once again. This time, darkness disappeared and the whole space was changed into that sunset scene again. Everything then became clear in Zhang Tai's eyes. Turned on. Turned off. Turned on. Turned off. Clear. Obscure. Clear. Obscure. Sunset scene. Darkness. Sunset scene. Darkness. That's really interesting. Zhang Tai felt like a big bulb had been installed in his eyes that could light up the whole world. With that bulb, he could easily shift between two different visual effects. Although this night viewing effect would consume a bit of his spiritual energy, it was almost negligible to Zhang Tai. Even if Zhang Tai kept using this night viewing effect for 3 months, it would not cost him 1/5 of his total spiritual energy. Haha. I'm fine. After knowing the effect of this night viewing ability, Zhang Tai was pretty jubilant. He burst into laughter and swam to the lakeside before putting on his clothes. Because Heller and the 3 servants were all male, Zhang Tai didn't feel shameful about putting on clothes in the public. "Congratulations. Castle Lord, you've gained a new ability," Heller said. "You already know about that effect?" Zhang Tai asked Heller as he was putting on his t-shirt. "I know everything in this space. The castle of Black Iron has sensed your change, my lord. Fiery Flame Red Lotus is really nice. It's exotic." Zhang Tai nodded. As a silicon-based plant in magma, Fiery Flame Red Lotus has a great ability to bear and sense high temperature. When those Fiery Flame Red Lotus that you've sowed in the castle of Black Iron grow ripe, Castle Lord can eat some more seeds. Then, your night viewing ability will gradually be intensified. Heller explained. Intensified? Hearing that word, Zhang Tai became a bit still as he slowed down the movement to fasten his waistband. "I think this ability is already sharp now. You mean it can become sharper?" Although Castle Lord can see clearly object shapes in darkness, can you see their temperatures clearly? As objects would present different colors and temperatures when in different environments, you will actually be able to identify them. Heller explained. "I can see objects' temperatures?" After thinking for a while, Zhang Tai further asked, "What's it for?" Commoners can identify 1 million kinds of rays and colors or so. Actually, there are numerous kinds of rays and colors due to different temperatures of objects and energies in the universe. Temperature is a very important measure in universe. If your eyes could see these temperatures, you would see a much more splendid scene in this world." "You mean people's eyes could see different temperatures, but for what?" Heller's words were out of Zhang Tai's comprehension ability. "For instance, a man is hiding behind that big tree. Can you see that man from here, day or night?" Heller pointed at a tree over there. "No." Zhang Tai waved his head. "Of course you can't, because you are watching using your normal visual ability. But if you could see temperatures, even though that man was hiding behind that big tree, you would still see him clearly. The reason lies in the difference between his body temperature and that of the big tree, which was as remarkable as a burning 10,000-year fluorite lamp." Zhang Tai understood it at once. He had not imagined that the seeds of Fiery Flame Red Lotus could have such an effect. Therefore, Zhang Tai burst out laughter. Although what he did to the slaves today didn't lead to any special fruit, Zhang Tai was not too disappointed about that. Although Zhang Tai didn't gain any fruit of redemption, he gained more than 6,000 merit values by setting free slaves, which made him very satisfied. After eating the latest leakless fruit, Zhang Tai left Castle of Black Iron and reappeared in the room of the hotel. With a night viewing ability, Zhang Tai continued to observe that building through the spyglass throughout the night. He figured out the personnel arrangements of that building in the evening and kept those arrangements in mind to further improve his plan. On the second morning, after accomplishing this travel to Stars Viewing City, Zhang Tai returned to Jinhai City in his fairy dragon T9. After staying with his family members for one day in Jinhai City, Zhang Tai wore Fei Yuao's face mask once again and made his final preparations on the plan in Jinhai City in the name of Fei Yuao, which cost him his remaining 2,000 gold coins or so. Later on, Fei Yuao disappeared and Zhang Tai returned to Hidden Dragon Island to accumulate his strength quietly and wait for the coming massacre and revenge. Chapter 353, Jinwu Castle. July 3, 1 week after Zhang Tai returned to Hidden Dragon Island and stayed there without arising any trouble. This day, two amazing events happened for all the clan students in Hidden Dragon Palace. Firstly, a name Zhang Tai suddenly ranked first on the Hidden Dragon wealth list in Qinyun Palace with 400,000 gold coins. This figure was even double the value of the second place. When many people in Hidden Dragon Palace were shocked by this news, the second piece of news arrived. That castle on Yunju Mountain of Hidden Dragon Island finally hung out the banner and logo of its owner at its highest place. When that castle was under construction, many people in Hidden Dragon Palace thought that was an agency affiliated by Huayuan Palace, another important base of Hidden Dragon Palace or Long Wind business group on the island. It was also said that as the Zhang clan was going to expand the territory of the Zhixing department, the current Zhixing department was going to move into that new castle on Yunju Mountain. From then on, the minimal standard for students to enter Hidden Dragon Palace would be above LV6. Those clan elites below LV6 who entered Hidden Dragon Island would be transferred to that castle on Yunju Mountain. However, when the banner of the castle hung out on July 3, everybody became dumbfounded as the banner of the castle was nothing to do with Huayuan Palace's subordinate agencies at all. Instead, it was a strange private banner which represented the status of its owner. In Junyun country, which was predominated by Chinese people, there were strict regulations on the styles of banners for various levels of clans, organizations, and individuals. Only national agencies and army could use dragon emblems and patterns. None of the four classical Chinese beasts like green Chinese dragon, white tiger, rosefinch, and xuanwu, a species that combines tortoise and snake, were allowed on the banners and logos of feudal princes and local clans in Jinyun country. Based on Chinese traditions, only emperors who founded the countries or first-class regimes had the right to use the four classical Chinese beasts as their banners or logos. Huayuan Palace's banner was Sea and Sky Long Wind banner. Besides, there were many other regulations, such as the bottom color of the banners of business groups and societal organizations should not be red or black, because these two colors were the bottom colors of the battle flag of the Chinese army. Take another example. Besides following the above regulations, private banners that symbolized private territory, interests, and rights should be triangular instead of being square. That banner rising from the highest place of that castle on Yunju Mountain was triangular and blue, on which there was a strange 3-foot bird and a golden sun. When this triangular banner rose up, its name was exposed under the gate tower, Jinwu Castle. All the students in Hidden Dragon Palace were shocked as this castle was not a part of Huayuan Palace, but a private castle. Besides the affiliated agencies of Huayuan Palace, the only ones that could build house on Hidden Dragon Island were some natives and students of Hidden Dragon Palace. For those natives, even some of them were rich, they could only pay 100,000 gold coins at most. They had no ability to build such a castle at all. When they knew that the owner of Jinwu Castle was Zhang Tai, a student in Breaking Heavens Department of Hidden Dragon Palace, the Breaking Heavens Department as a whole seemed to go mad. Zhang Tai had broken the record, the first student in Breaking Heavens Department to own a castle on Hidden Dragon Island. Some curious guys checked the records of the first places on the Hidden Dragon wealth list and found that before Zhang Tai, the richest student in Hidden Dragon Palace only had 380,000 gold coins. They then became more thrilled. Some careful ones studied Zhang Tai's experience in Hidden Dragon Palace and found that Zhang Tai had created 4 records, instead of 1. The first student who owned a private castle on Hidden Dragon Island since the founding of Hidden Dragon Palace. The richest student since the founding of Hidden Dragon Palace. The student who had formed Iron Blood Battle Chi in the shortest period since the founding of Hidden Dragon Palace. The first student who had produced all-purpose medicaments since the founding of Hidden Dragon Palace. In just one day, Zhang Tai had become one of the most famous people in Hidden Dragon Palace as a star student who had produced all-purpose medicament. No matter where it was and which age it was in, any rich people would become attractive, even in Hidden Dragon Palace. On the same day, when the girls in Jixing department were told this news and felt it was unbelievable, they all received Zhang Tai's invitation. As my castle is completed, I prepared some drinks. I now invite you for a carnival at sunset tomorrow. Zhang Tai. All the girls who'd bet with Zhang Tai had received his invitation, including Guimieli and the other girls who had already entered Breaking Heaven's department. At the sight of the scrawls on the letters of invitation, all the girls looked pretty weird. It's really senior brother Zhang Tai. Only he would send such a letter of invitation. Lu Shasha sighed as the other girls in Jixing department nodded. Will we go there then? A naive girl asked hesitantly. Of course we will go there. That guy is narrow-minded. If we don't go there, he might come here to collect our debts. The girls then giggled. If we get along well with senior brother Zhang Tai, we might be helped by this richest person in the future. If so, we wouldn't have to work so hard to make money. A girl joked. It's said that senior brother doesn't have a girlfriend yet. But this is a good opportunity. If any one of you have fallen in love with him, you have to seize this chance, otherwise, it might be late. As Yuhan has already given her first kiss to senior brother Zhang Tai, Yuhan should have a try. No way. Du Yuhan's face slightly blushed. Forget about that, he was just saving me out of the sea. The girls were all joking with Du Yuhan except for Chu Liangying, who was just smiling. Out of a strange yet powerful instinct, Du Yuhan exchanged glances with Chu Liangying. The two girls instantly knew what that meant. Besides the 12 girls who had bet with Zhang Tai, many others received Zhang Tai's letters of invitation too, including Zhang Tai's good friends in Jixing department, Zhang Keliang, Zhang Yunfei, Wei Wu, and Zhang Hongxing, and Yang Yuankong's group who cooperated with Zhang Tai to sell the all-purpose medicament for the first time, Gu Kaidai, Ma Aiyun, who taught Zhang Tai basic movements, Lu Su, whom Zhang Tai had a drink with, and Zhang Lin, Zhu Wenqiang whom Zhang Tai got acquainted with when he was a yiksha in the sea. After receiving Zhang Tai's invitation, Zhang Keliang, Zhang Yunfei, Wei Wu, and Zhang Hongxing all felt warm inside. Due to different courses and tasks between Jixing department and Breaking Heaven's department, they'd had fewer chances to meet each other since Zhang Tai entered Breaking Heaven's department, especially after Zhang Tai became famous. After receiving Zhang Tai's invitation, they looked forward to seeing Zhang Tai's familiar and kind face again. Everything was changing, except for the friendship between them. When receiving Zhang Tai's invitation, Zhang Lin and Zhu Wenqiang were also very shocked. After watching the letters of invitation for quite a while, they finally accepted the fact. The junior brother who was working as a yiksha in the sea together with them had been unusual in only a few days. Zhang Lin and Zhu Wenqiang were not idiots. They both knew the importance to maintain the friendship between them and Zhang Tai. Anyone who could rank first on any hidden dragon list had never been an average figure in the history of Huayuan Palace unless they died at a young age. Zhang Tai was only 17 years old. Anyone who was farsighted could see that Zhang Tai had a bright future. They got acquainted with Zhang Tai together with Yang Yuankong. Recently, they were told that Yang Yuankong was living pretty well in Breaking Heaven's department. When they were still struggling for a few clan contribution points and the monthly payment of Breaking Heaven's department, Yang Yuankong had already stabilized his business on Hidden Dragon Island. Although the relationship between Yang Yuankong and Zhang Tai could not be completely duplicated, this at least indicated that Zhang Tai had already been able to easily influence and decide the destiny and future of people around him. Zhang Tai was definitely a reliable and powerful friend. He was the so-called good teacher and helpful friend. Lu Su, who got acquainted with Zhang Tai through Zhang Su, also had the same feeling. After receiving Zhang Tai's invitation, Lu Su felt slightly overwhelmed by the special favor. He had not imagined that Zhang Tai still remembered him at this moment. After all, they only met a few times and had a drink together. I wonder how senior brother Zhang Su would feel if he knew that his younger cousin had become a popular person in Hidden Dragon Palace. A thought flashed across Lu Su's mind. Do we need to buy an expensive gift for Zhang Tai? Compared to others, Yang Yuan Kong and Zhang Feng became both excited and touched. As they all made money with the support and preferential treatment of Zhang Tai, the moment they received Zhang Tai's invitation, they had gathered together and discussed about visiting Zhang Tai's castle tomorrow. The more money they made through Zhang Tai, the more important Zhang Tai was in their heart. Therefore, they became more careful about their relationship with Zhang Tai. The one who asked was Yang Yuan Kong's partner. Soon after he asked, the rest had started to discuss about that, except for Yang Yuan Kong, who was gazing at Zhang Tai's letter of invitation seriously and silently. Among them, Yang Yuan Kong was most dignified, therefore, finally they all waited for Yang Yuan Kong's reply. Do you think that Zhang Tai needs our gift? Yang Yuan Kong asked. They then exchanged glances with each other and didn't say any more. Yuan Kong, what do you mean? It's just a party between friends. We only need to treat him sincerely. No need to bring any gift at all. Just take yourselves to enjoy supper there. Just take your girlfriends or boyfriends there to visit the first student's castle of Hidden Dragon Palace, if you have one. I will take my girlfriend at least. Yang Yuan Kong smiled. Is this proper? You will know it later on. Not everybody can enjoy this special treatment. Seize this opportunity to enjoy yourselves, if not, you will regret it. Yang Yuan Kong said seriously. After thinking about Yang Yuan Kong's words carefully, they all felt they was reasonable. Lan Yunqi, who lived in Phoenix Resting Pavilion, also received a letter of invitation. Previously, she was executing a clan task away from the island. When she came back to Hidden Dragon Island, it was already June 28th. Not until she returned did Lan Yunqi know what Zhang Tai had experienced during the period when she had been away. Lan Yunqi knew that a LV9 powerhouse assigned by Longwind Business Group to protect an important figure betrayed Longwind Business Group and Huayuan Palace while cooperating with an unknown power was nothing different than a terrifying earthquake in Longwind Business Group and Huayuan Palace. It contained too much horrible information. What was the background of Lu Xiang? Was he a mole assigned by another power before he joined Longwind Business Group? Was there someone else like Lu Xiang in Longwind Business Group and Huayuan Palace? Was it a coincidence or a planned arrangement to dispatch Lu Xiang to protect Zhang Tai? Wasn't it a shame for Huayuan Palace to let someone assassinate its student on Hidden Dragon Island? Additionally, how was the confidential message that Zhang Tai could realize large mass production of all-purpose medicament leaked? Each of the above questions was fatal. Lan Yunqi became really worried about that. At the beginning, someone in Longwind Business Group still doubted Zhang Tai's testimony that Lu Xiang betrayed Longwind Business Group and assassinated Zhang Tai. After all, Zhang Tai was the only witness. Now, Lu Xiang had died and Zhang Tai could only provide simple evidence. In some people's eyes, these pieces of evidence were not persuasive enough. When Longwind Business Group started to survey Lu Xiang's background, some key figures who introduced Lu Xiang in the business group committed a suicide one after another. After this clue was cut off, those who doubted Zhang Tai's testimony finally shut up. Now, even idiots would know that Lu Xiang was not innocent. However, what was more terrifying was that Longwind Business Group didn't know how seriously it had been infiltrated by other powers. The Seniors Association of Huayuan Palace became furious while Zhang Tai, Lan Yunqi's uncle, had been asked to accept the inquiry of Seniors Association. At this moment, although outsiders thought Yang City and Huayuan Palace were as safe and sound as before, the sky had been covered with black clouds and a terrifying and destructive rainstorm was brewing. However, the one who aroused this storm still asked his friends for a carnival in his new nest. The moment she remembered Zhang Tai's roguish look, Lan Yunqi was bedriven mad. Chapter 354, Secret Tunnel. Peh. As the inside of the tunnel had not been smoothed, some areas jutted out from the edges. When Zhang Tai passed one such place, his head against the jet on the ceiling, as a result, some sandy soil dropped off, making Zhang Tai's head dirty all over. Some of the soil even entered Zhang Tai's mouth, therefore, Zhang Tai hurriedly spat it out. Steel shovel and spade in hand, Zhang Tai moved to the end of this narrow tunnel where he had reached yesterday. With one leg half knelt down on the ground, he then pulled down his goggles and slightly inserted his steel shovel into the hard and thick soil. As a result, a lot of earth and sand were dug out. With his great, mammoth strength, in just a few minutes, Zhang Tai had already dug out a great amount of earth and sand and pushed another meter forward. Seeing too much earth and sand being piled in the secret tunnel, Zhang Tai put down his steel shovel. He then held a steel spade whose handle had been cut short. With one spade, he had lifted over 10 kilograms of earth and sand. Zhang Tai then focused his spiritual energy on them and instantly moved them into the pool of chaos in Castle of Black Iron. Zhang Tai then kept digging and removing the waste like this. After several days' work, Zhang Tai had become very familiar with this series of movements. The earth and sand blocking the secret tunnel were soon moved away, by something akin to magic, and became the basic energy storage of Castle of Black Iron. Zhang Tai then moved another meter forward. After that, he switched his spade for the shovel and kept digging like a groundhog. With the support of Zhang Tai's terrifying, mammoth strength and physique, and the pool of chaos in Castle of Black Iron, Zhang Tai dealt with the sand and earth very easily. Therefore, Zhang Tai's efficiency was very high. It only took him a couple of minutes to push 1 or 2 meters forward. Although it was pitch dark in the secret tunnel, this was not a problem for Zhang Tai at all because he had night viewing ability. Several hours later, Zhang Tai stopped working. He leaned his ears against the wall of the tunnel as he heard the clear sound of running water from the other side of the tunnel. Zhang Tai was so thrilled that he kept digging faster. 10 minutes later, with a sound of crash, a lot of sand and earth collapsed. At the same time, Zhang Tai drilled out of his secret tunnel and appeared in a karst cave of a subterranean river in the hinterland of Yunju Mountain. This karst cave only covered several 10,000 square meters and was just over 10 meters in height. The inside of the cave was twisted with various odd-looking stalactites and limestones. A 5 to 6 meter wide subterranean river bubbled through the cave. In most cases, human spheres originated from the unknown. Darkness was one such unknown. If one could see clearly his surroundings, one's fear would be greatly reduced. Zhang Tai was such a case. If he didn't have the night viewing ability, he might be a bit scared in such a strange environment. However, after clearly seeing the karst cave and the subterranean river, Zhang Tai became relaxed at once. It seems that Lu Gong didn't lie to me. According to their geological survey, there's a huge enclosed karst cave and a subterranean river leading to the Flying Swallow Lake. Zhang Tai mumbled. After briefly checking this underground karst cave, Zhang Tai found it was really an enclosed space in the hinterland of a mountain. Besides the secret tunnel that he had dug, Zhang Tai didn't find any other access to this karst cave, therefore, Zhang Tai became completely reassured. After checking this karst cave in the hinterland of Yunju Mountain, Zhang Tai investigated that subterranean river, which was only 3 to 4 meters deep. After coursing through the karst cave for a distance, it entered the hinterland of the mountain. From his brief check of the karst cave and the subterranean river, Zhang Tai estimated where he was and the position of Flying Swallow Lake in the outside. Thus, he dove into the subterranean river without any hesitation. The river was very crystal. With the help of his night viewing ability, Zhang Tai could still see clearly underwater. Zhang Tai had a very sharp sense of the water flow. Additionally, he could swim super fast and breath without any limit underwater. Therefore, he had no fear when he jumped into the subterranean river. If it was another person, even it was a powerhouse who was 10 times more powerful than Zhang Tai and had good swimming skills, he wouldn't just jump into the subterranean river, because he didn't know the flowing direction and environment of the subterranean river. What if you found that this subterranean river lasted over 1,000 kilometers like a water pipe when you jumped in and had no chance to get out for a breath? Although you felt the water here flew slowly and indicated no danger at all, what if, after swimming several thousand kilometers, you suddenly found this subterranean river led to a terrifying waterfall which cascaded into an abyss? What if there were subterranean whirlpools with horrible power capable of drowning you? Each of the above situations could easily kill a person. Therefore, almost nobody dared to swim in subterranean rivers casually, even though they might have such incredible swimming skills that they could take ocean as their own swimming pool. Compared to the ocean, the dangers in this subterranean river were unpredictable. After swimming for a while in the subterranean river, Zhang Tai found the way in front divided into two. One seemed leading to Flying Swallow Lake while the other seemed leading to White Dragon Town. Zhang Tai chose the way leading to Flying Swallow Lake. It was only a distance of 500 to 600 meters from there to Flying Swallow Lake. The waterway in front became increasingly narrower from 5 or 6 meters to 2 or 3 meters wide, resulting in the water's rate of flow also slowing down. The narrowest place was less than 1 meter in width as it was between two huge rocks. Thankfully, Zhang Tai finally swam across there. With a bright light, Zhang Tai raised his head and found that he had already left the subterranean river. Over 20 meters above him was the surface of Flying Swallowing Lake. The connection between the subterranean river and the Flying Swallow Lake was at the bottom of the lake on the side closest to Yunju Mountain, which was even and water flow slowly out, so it wouldn't be noticed easily. The bottom of Flying Swallow Lake was covered with verdant water weeds and stones. The connecting tunnel between the subterranean river and the Flying Swallow Lake was hidden amongst the water weeds and stones. Unless someone especially waited by the cave, nobody would notice someone swimming out of it. A shoal of finger-long fish swam across the water weeds while the water level of the lake was glistening like jumping golden flames. Zhang Tai, who suddenly moved his head out of the water weeds, scared those little fish away at once. Zhang Tai then observed the water level for a while and found a ship floating 300 meters away from him. Looking up from the bottom, Zhang Tai could see clearly the arched belly of the ship. It was not the right moment to expose himself by getting out of the water. After figuring out the surrounding environment, Zhang Tai made a turn like a fish and flowed back into that tunnel at the bottom of Flying Swallow Lake. When he reached that cross 500 to 600 m away in the upper reach, Zhang Tai thought for a while before swimming along the waterway towards White Dragon Town. Several minutes later, Zhang Tai exposed his head out of a shiny water level. After taking 2 mouthfuls of fresh air, Zhang Tai raised his head and looked up as he felt the entrance of the cave was a bit weird. At that moment, a pitch-black object fell down. Thankfully, Zhang Tai jumped away swiftly, otherwise, his head would have been crushed by it. After being scared a lot, Zhang Tai watched that object carefully and found it was a bucket. Zhang Tai immediately knew where he was. "Wanfu, you asshole, are you napping there again? Have you prepared the water in the water vat in the back garden? Xiaohe and the other servant girls are still waiting for it. Lord's flowers need to be watered in both the morning and evening. If they were not watered on time because of you, I will break your legs." ****. A domineering voice came from above. "Haha, Steward Zhao, how could I dare sleep here? Look, I'm drawing water from the well." With the flattery voice, that wooden bucket then tilted and sank in the water. In a few seconds, it had been filled with water and was drawn out of the well. "Don't think that I've not seen that. Obviously, you started to move when you saw me. You were obviously indolent in duty. I will dock half of your pay for this month." With that icy condemnation, Steward Zhao got closer to the well. "No, Steward Zhao, if that happens, I will be in a poor mood. Then, I will drink a lot to ease my sorrow. If so, I would hardly be able to keep what I saw in the evening a few days ago a secret." "What do you mean?" Wanfu then lowered his voice and became mysterious. "As I drank too much, I went to the toilet in the night before last. However, because I was drunk and it was very dark then, I could not find the toilet, therefore, I went to the rockery in the back garden to have a pee. Coincidentally, I caught sight of you and Xiaohong, the servant of Madame in the mountain cave. Ha, ha, Steward Zhao really had a good physique." Steward Zhao started to cough ferociously. "Wanfu, you are too honest and diligent. How can you be left to finish so much work in the mansion alone? Just fill the water vat in the back garden today, take a rest tomorrow. I will add 5 silver coins for you monthly compensation from then on. Don't be loaf on the job. Lord will definitely reward your hard work. Thanks, Steward Zhao. Hearing that conversation, Zhang Tai swore inside as he dove into the water once again. Several minutes later, Zhang Tai arrived back in the mountain cave in the hinterland of Yunju Mountain. Although nobody else would come here, Zhang Tai still covered this cave with some water weeds and a huge stone before going back to a hidden room along that secret tunnel. This hidden room was a bit similar to that one left by Donder in Black Hot City. It covered more than 200 square meters and was connected to the upside through stairs. Additionally, there were some 10,000-year fluorite lamps and some simple daily products in the hidden room. This place was used for Zhang Tai to enter meditation and cultivate his fighting skills in Jinwu Castle. After climbing out of the secret tunnel, Zhang Tai easily moved the over 300-kilogram slab of bluestone back to its original position. He then placed a desk on the stone floor. In this way, nobody else could identify that secret tunnel at all. There was another secret tunnel in the castle which was connected to Zhang Tai's bedroom and study room, through which Zhang Tai could silently leave Jinwu Castle and arrived at the place close to the airship port. That secret tunnel was built by Longwind Business Group for Zhang Tai. However, after Lu Xiong's betrayal, Zhang Tai understood it clearly that the secret tunnel to the airport had become useless to him. Any secret known by 2 people was not a secret anymore. What was more than 2 people knew of the existence of that secret tunnel, such as those who attended the designing of the castle's blueprints and the construction of the secret tunnel. Therefore, those who wanted to screw over Zhang Tai must have already known about its existence. Perhaps, at this moment, someone on Hidden Dragon Island was watching that secret tunnel through a telescope. Of course, Zhang Tai would not make plans or keep secrets on the basis of a secret tunnel which had been exposed. Therefore, ever since he came back to Huayuan Palace, Zhang Tai had remained in his secret room under the guise of meditating and cultivating fighting skills for a long period of time every day. Actually, in this period, Zhang Tai had silently broken through a secret tunnel based on the information that he had received which nobody else knew except for him. At the beginning, that engineer who was responsible for building Jinwu Castle only casually mentioned the geological structure of Yunju Mountain to Zhang Tai. However, he would not have imagined that Zhang Tai had kept his words in mind and truly dug out a secret tunnel leading to the hinterland of Yunju Mountain and found a path in the subterranean river to leave this castle secretly. Perhaps even that engineer could not remember that he had mentioned this to Zhang Tai at this moment. After all, a person spoke a lot every day, especially in casual conversations. Nobody could remember each sentence that they had said. Zhang Tai felt good. After circling around the hidden room and placing everything back in its original position, Zhang Tai glanced at his watch and decided to leave. At this moment, he lowered his head and found he was a bit embarrassed, therefore, he directly entered Castle of Black Iron. After changing into a set of clean clothes in Castle of Black Iron, he checked his appearance in a mirror and returned to the hidden room. Given Zhang Tai's current look, nobody would think that he was digging hole like a groundhog these days. I will take a chance to investigate the situation of that household in White Dragon Town. If possible, I will buy their house under another name. That way, it would be more convenient for me to leave my castle and it would be harder for others to figure out my trace. Damn. Smart rabbits always have 3 holes. I'm smarter than a rabbit. Thinking that, Zhang Tai had walked upside through the stairs. After passing through a 10-meter-long passageway, Zhang Tai opened the alloy-made cipher lock of the hidden room before walked out of the hidden room. A few minutes after Zhang Tai left the hidden room, some guys whom Zhang Tai had invited for a party had already arrived outside Jinwu Castle in advance. Wei Wu, are we here a bit early? Zhang Tai said to get here after the sunset. But it's still 1 hour away from sunset. Walking on the mountain path of Yunju Mountain, Zhang Hongxing raised his head and looked at that sun which was only a bit in the west and lowered his voice. Isn't it a bit embarrassing if we arrive there too early? Never mind, it would be embarrassing if we are there too late. Wei Wu waved his hand manly. We are Zhang Tai's earliest brothers and friends in Hidden Dragon Palace, of course we need to be there earlier. We can help him prepare for the party. I was told that Zhang Tai has invited 20 to 30 people in total. We are celebrating him moving into a new home, therefore, we need to be there a bit earlier. There should be some others in the castle, he doesn't need our help at all. I'm curious about Jinwu Castle. If we can be there a bit earlier, we can have a nosy around his castle. If we are late, Zhang Tai will be too busy to take care of us. Zhang Yunfei smiled. After half a year's cultivation in Hidden Dragon Island, Zhang Yunfei, who was delicate before, had grown taller, darker, and healthier with a pair of spirited eyes. He was totally different from that person half year ago. Besides Zhang Yunfei, Wei Wu and Zhang Hongxing also changed greatly. They would soon ignite the 8th surging point on their spine and officially became LV6 fighters. Hearing these words, Zhang Cailiang, who always behaved like an elder brother, only replied with a smile. He then raised his head and looked at the magnificent Jinwu Castle at the end of the mountain path. In this age, every man would like to have his own castle. To have one's own castle meant the beginning of having one's own clan. Zhang Cailiang had not mentioned his dream to others, which was to found his own clan and have such a castle one day. He was not jealous about Zhang Tai's achievement, instead, he took it as a stimulant. He was proud of having Zhang Tai as his friend, as he could gain a powerful, positive energy from Zhang Tai. I can make it one day too. Zhang Cailiang mumbled. After being decorated, the exterior wall of Jinwu Castle was not that ugly grey concrete wall anymore. Instead, it had been covered with a special clouding granite which was a specialty of Yunju Mountain. In this way, the exterior wall became more defensive, besides, it was much more beautiful than before. Additionally, the style of Jinwu Castle was also very unique. Compared to those classical castles which looked square, this castle featured more flexible and personalized elements. Therefore, Jinwu Castle became the most beautiful castle on Hidden Dragon Island. Although they had seen castles many times in Hidden Dragon Island, when they arrived at the foot of Jinwu Castle, they were really shocked by the high exterior wall of the castle and the flying eaves at the top of the bartizans, which looked like they were burning in the sunshine. Gazing at it all, the group could only stand there with jaws on the ground. On the walls, bartizans, and steam-driven battery platforms, some tall spirits soldiers in holy steel armor were standing guard with long spears, which made the castle more magnificent and solemn. Outside the castle gate, 2 rows of tall spirit soldiers were standing on both sides of the suspension bridge. Although Jinwu Castle had just been completed, it was already established to a certain degree. The moment Wei Wu's group moved close to the front gate of the castle, a tall spirit soldier in a full body armor with a long sword on his waist had already walked up to them. "Excuse me, are you here for the party tonight?" "Yes, we are," Zhang Yunfei answered. "I'm Lennox, the team leader of security guards of Jinwu Castle. May I have a look at your letters of invitation?" When they were going to present their letters of invitation, a voice sounded behind Lennox. "No need, Lennox, they are my friends." With a big smile, Zhang Tai had already raced up from inside the gate of the castle. The moment they caught sight of Zhang Tai, they all smiled, while some spirits guards outside the gate instantly stood at attention with their long spears. Wei Wu, Zhang Cailiang, and the other 2 people then punched Zhang Tai's shoulders with smile. Zhang Tai punched them back too, like how they greeted with each other before. They then burst out laughing. "Brat, you're rich now. You are the first one to have a castle in Hidden Dragon Palace. If not for your letter of invitation, I would never have believed that you could have become so rich in only half a year." Saying this, Wei Wu punched Zhang Tai once again. "Haha. God helped me develop all-purpose medicament, don't be jealous." Zhang Tai still talked with them in the same way like before. "All-purpose medicament is too poor in quality. I will develop something far superior when I become an alchemist," Zhang Hongxing said loudly. After that, he even threw a contemptuous glance at Zhang Tai. "Forget about that. Even if you become a golden robe alchemist one day, you still won't be as rich as me." Zhang Tai also pretended to glance at Zhang Hongxing contemptuously. "I'm not even a herbal apprentice now, so what?" Seeing this, everybody smiled once again. Although Zhang Tai lived in his own castle now, he was still that guy who picked navy blue iron ores together with them. "Are you going out?" Zhang Yunfei asked Zhang Tai. No, I saw you from the wall just now. Therefore, I'm here to welcome you guys. How about having a look at my Jinwu castle before the party? Please. Zhang Keliang answered at once. Zhang Tai then guided them in Jinwu castle and showed them around it. To be honest, Zhang Tai really was proud of having a castle at such a young age, even though he tried his best to be modest. At the moment, Zhang Tai found that his dream to lie on gold coins with the company of a lot of beauties had already come true so early. Even the buildings closest to the walls of the Barbican could easily hold 1,800 soldiers or other people and would be very spacious to hold 600 to 700 people. However, only 100 spirit soldiers were stationed in the Barbican of Jinwu Castle, therefore, it looked extremely spacious here. Except for those rooms already being utilized, there were still over 300 empty rooms in different sizes. There was a circular, broad street, a small fountain square for the performance of fighting skills and a garden between the Barbican and the internal castle. The street, the fountain square and the garden were even interlinked with some winding corridors and half-overlay alleys and delicate lanes. On two sides of these alleys and lanes, there were many relatively lower buildings which were as high as 4 floors, namely lower than 20 meters. These buildings were built in an extremely tidy and delicate way. At the sight of them, Zhang Yunfei and the other 3 guys remembered those shops on both sides of the business street in their own hometowns. What are these rooms for? Zhang Hongxing asked out of curiosity. They look like stores. Yes, they are going to be stores. In the future, they could be public houses, hotels, or various workshops. It would be very wasteful if such a huge castle only held a few people. Are you going to open some areas of Jinwu Castle to the public for commercial purpose? Zhang Yunfei realized at once. Zhang Tai smiled, why not? As Hidden Dragon Island is becoming more and more populated, the land available in the towns surrounding Dragon Cave are in short supply. I've made an investigation that in the coming years, more than 100,000 square meters of housing area need to increase every year so as to meet various commercial and service demands. Now that, why not take advantage of my current resources? This would bring me money and make Hidden Dragon Island more populated and energetic. My target is to make Jinwu Castle into a small city on Hidden Dragon Island. Alas, it seems that Zhang Tai's opinion is feasible. This place is close to White Dragon Town and not far from Dragon Cave, however, it is much more tranquil than those towns surrounding Dragon Cave. Not everyone who comes to Hidden Dragon Island likes the noisy environment in the towns. If this place was really open to the public for commercial purpose, I think it could work. Zhang Hongxing, 1, shouted, many senior brothers in Breaking Heaven's department of Hidden Dragon Palace are also opening stores and hotels to make money. Why not here? Wei Wu then rubbed his jaw with his hand like an experienced man as he looked at the tidy, elegant and ambient environment on both sides of the street. How about Jinwu Commercial Area or Jinwu Pedestrian Street? These 2 names sound great. Oh, are you going to sell or rent them? Rent, of course. Zhang Tai smiled. Are you kidding me? If I want to have the most authority in Jinwu Castle, of course, I will not sell this land. If I just rent them, I will still have the right to decide their use. I don't need to find trouble for myself. After looking around carefully, Zhang Keliang's heart started to race. Actually, not only Zhang Keliang, even Wei Wu and the other 2 guys had considered the source of the monthly payment in Breaking Heaven's department in the future. Although there were many ways to make money on Hidden Dragon Island, such as making medicament and various tools, exploring and undertaking tasks with high risks and high profits, the fastest and most stable way to make money was actually the popular business route, namely, opening stores to serve people on the island. As long as you were not too stupid, if you opened a store on Hidden Dragon Island, you could always make money. The constant flow of people on Hidden Dragon Island was the biggest assurance for your income. Therefore, the price of land and stores in the towns were also very expensive. For Wei Wu, Zhang Keliang, Zhang Yunfei, and Zhang Hongxing, they had to struggle for a long time to buy a store on Hidden Dragon Island. However, the shortcut was right in front of them. Receiving no response, Zhang Tai noticed their hesitated and embarrassed looks and laughed. All right, no crap, just take where you want, one room for each, you can do your own business respectively or cooperatively. It depends on you. Free rent for the first 2 years. How about it? Wei Wu uttered a weird sound as he instantly hugged Zhang Tai and intended to kiss Zhang Tai's face, which really frightened Zhang Tai a lot. F***ck, what do you want? I'm not interested in men. Zhang Tai directly responded with a shoulder throw. If not this, how else can I express my excitement and pleasure? If you dare to kiss me, I will let the 100 spirit soldiers in the castle express their excitement and pleasure to you in the same way. Hearing Zhang Tai's words, Wei Wu was so scared that he hurriedly jumped away from Zhang Tai. Zhang Keong, Zhang Hongxing, and Zhang Yunfei all burst out laughing loudly. In the internal castle, they visited the production area of all-purpose medicament, which was going to be the core area of internal castle. Watching the 1,000-odd huge tranches in the stratified warehouses and those rooms that had been isolated for cleaning, mincing, mixing and canning fruits and the whole set of processing tools in the rooms, they were really stunned. My goddess! Are you making all-purpose medicament or pickled vegetables? Zhang Hongxing exclaimed. Almost like that. All-purpose medicament is just a super enzyme. Some processing procedures are same to that of common enzymes. Zhang Tai explained. No matter what, he could not keep this a secret from them. For some people, they might have already known about this. Therefore, Zhang Tai didn't plan to keep this as a secret from his friends. Realizing the importance of this place, Zhang Keliang, Zhang Hongxing, Zhang Yunfei, and Wei Wu didn't say anything, yet they were all moved inside as they knew that Zhang Tai took them as bosom buddies. In the internal castle of Jinwu Castle, besides visiting the production area of all-purpose medicament, they also looked around Zhang Tai's bedroom. Compared to the former bedroom where Zhang Tai lived in Jixing Department, this bedroom had been more than 200 square meters, excluding the balcony. This was really awe-inspiring. In Zhang Tai's words, there were too many empty rooms in internal castle, including more than 30 guest rooms, therefore, he chose the biggest one as the master bedroom. During their visit, they also saw those women inside the internal castle, who were those slaves that Zhang Tai had bought. At this moment, they had put on new clothes which were essential for female servants in castle. When choosing their costumes, Zhang Tai suddenly recalled Hannah, therefore, he let all the female servants put on costumes like how the local women would wear on beer festival in Blaipi. The only difference was that the colors of their costumes were predominated by black and white. High-heeled leather shoes, foot-reaching skirt, corset, apron, opening collar with delicate lace and tidy puff sleeve. Those female servants all thought that with this costume, they could work easily, meanwhile, they could also show their elegant figures, therefore, they were very happy. For Zhang Tai, whenever he saw them in this costume, he would feel relaxed like going back to Blaipi. The costumes truly made him feel warm inside. However, after knowing that there were over 50 female servants in the internal castle in usual time, those guys' expressions completely changed. After exchanging glances with each other, they swore at Zhang Tai in unison. Beast! Zhang Tai then burst out laughing loudly. Oh, where are those junior sisters from Jixing Department? Have you seen them on the way here? You don't know that? For such an invitation, if they don't spend 1 or 2 hours preparing, they won't come here. Some girls have long gone to White Dragon Town to dress their hair in the early morning. An hour after Wei Wu arrived at Jinwu Castle, the girls from Jixing Department and Breaking Heavens Department finally arrived. At the sight of them, Zhang Tai was really shocked by their incredible looks. All of them had gotten ready carefully as each of them was beautiful and enchanting. At the sight of them, Zhang Tai revealed a sorrow look while saying, "You all look like fairies, are you trying to murder me by your incredible looks?" Peh, liar. Hearing Zhang Tai's words, even Guimiaolu's face slightly blushed because of being bashful or joy. Although Zhang Tai was always nasty most of the time, he could really amuse girls. Seeing Chu Liangying pulling Ducati's hands intimately and enjoying their talk, Zhang Tai touched his head. "Are you sparing 2 single men? Kai Dai is my senior sister. Liangying is my junior sister. The two girls smiled as they answered and showed the white of their eyes to Zhang Tai. Heh, heh, welcome to my Jinwu castle for guidance, it's my great honor to have you here. Zhang Tai then made a welcome gesture at the gate of the castle. Those girls then walked in the castle with smiles on faces. At the end of the line, Lu Shasha even threw a glance at Zhang Tai when she passed him. At the same time, Zhang Tai also glanced at her and gazed at her little mouth with an obscure smile. As a result, Lu Shasha was so scared that she instantly hid behind Du Yuhan. Zhang Tai burst out laughing loudly. Soon after these girls arrived, Yang Yuankong, Zhang Lin, Zhu Wenxiang and Lu Su also arrived, while Yang Yuankong and Lu Su even brought along their girlfriends. Yang Yuankong's girlfriend was Zhang Zhao, while Lu Su's girlfriend was Yang Miling. They were both students of Hidden Dragon Palace. Zhang Tai chose to start their party on a rooftop of the internal castle. There was a swimming pool, a small garden and a room which covered more than 300 square meters. This place was used for entertainment, therefore, it was more cozy than comfortable. Zhang Tai provided them with a buffet, a seafood barbecue and limitless drinks. Although they were all acting a bit reserved, when they arrived at the rooftop and noticed the arrangements, they all cheered up, especially girls. Before Zhang Tai said anything, they've already ran away towards the buffet table and the grill. As they were almost of the same age and came from Hidden Dragon Palace, they had too many things to share. A short while later, after becoming more familiar with each other, they had already begun to get along well with each other, and the rooftop had been overwhelmed with cheers from everyone, the laughter of girls, and exclamations from boys. An hour later, it was already totally dark outside. Starting from Wei Wu, who competed to drink the most alcohol with Guo Miaolu and threw up into the swimming pool by some boys, everybody in the party became crazy. Seeing that all of his friends on Hidden Dragon Island was there except for Lan Yunxi, Zhang Tai felt a bit regretful and sorrowful. What the hell is love? It makes me want to die. You mother ***. I can't stand it anymore. Zhang Tai shouted loudly while shaking his head. After that, he took a bottle of liquor and downed it, then, he took another one. After a crude cut through the lid, he sent the lid of the bottle in the air. He then yelled towards those male animals who were still competing with alcohol and showing their muscles, "This alcohol emperor, Zhang Tai, is going to kill people tonight, who'd like to fight me?" Hearing this, a number of animals charged at him with roars. However, the boys didn't know that Zhang Tai didn't mean that he was going to compete drinking alcohol with them. Chapter 355, Wolf and Eagle in the Sea. The party on the rooftop lasted for more than 4 hours, during which period, some boys were drunk, even many girls were intoxicated as their faces looked rosier than usual. When they were completely indulged in, Zhang Tai took off his upper garment and shouted towards those girls from Xixing Department, "Girls, here's your creditor. Big sale from your senior brother, with one kiss, your debt would be cleared, now or never." The moment Zhang Tai finished, Guo Miaolu, whose face had totally blushed due to drink, rushed over and rapidly hugged Zhang Tai's head. With a sound of bow, she forcefully kissed Zhang Tai's face. At the sight of that, the other girls all shrieked. A great number of girls then rushed towards him. With a series of sound bow, Zhang Tai's face had been marked with more than 10 red lips. As soon as the debts were cleared, Zhang Tai was instantly thrown into the swimming pool by those girls, causing a high splash. The moment he fell into the swimming pool, Zhang Tai instantly woke. The water in the swimming pool was maintained at about 36 degrees Celsius through a steam heat circulation system, therefore, it felt pretty comfortable inside. As the depth of the water was even less than 2 meters, with a slight movement of his hands, Zhang Tai had already floated back to the water level. He then stared at those girls who were staggering back and forth due to their laughter. "Damn, who dared to throw me into the water? You'd better not get caught by me, otherwise, I will force you to be my wife." Zhang Tai pretended to be vicious as he splashed water towards those girls beside the swimming pool. After that, he charged at them ferociously. Seeing this, those girls shrieked as they escaped in all directions. Many girls' skirts were even splashed wet. Zhang Tai burst out laughing as he climbed on the land. At this moment, Zhang Tai found that most of them were completely drunk. Wei Wu and Zhang Yunfei were lying on the grass, continuously vomiting. Among the boys, besides Yang Yuankong and Lu Su who brought their girlfriends along, everybody else was drunk out of their minds. It was similar with girls. Among those girls, the ones who were drunk first were Zhang Tai's generous senior sisters Ma Ayun and Yuan Zi. They were straightforward, if not, they would not have dared to find Zhang Tai trouble in the training field of basic movements. When they started to compete by drinking alcohol, most of the boys could not defeat them at all. Zhang Feng and Zhang Keliang were the typical examples who were lying below the table. It's the happiest day since I came to Hidden Dragon Island. Senior brother, come on, let's have another cup. Li Yuro, a junior sister from Jixing Department, staggered in front of Zhang Tai. Soon after she finished saying this, she fell into the swimming pool. Seeing this, Zhang Tai hurriedly carried her out of there and summoned some female servants to take her into a bedroom. As the master of this castle, of course, Zhang Tai should not just leave or become drunk. He told those female servants to take anyone drunk into a bedroom for a rest. He estimated that they would have recovered by the next day. No matter what, he had dozens of guest rooms which were enough to hold them. Of course, the boys' bedrooms and girls' bedrooms were isolated. Those girls slept together in connected suites, each suite could hold a few girls. In this way, it would be easy for those girls to look after each other in case of any emergencies. For Yang Yuankong and Lu Su, Zhang Tai threw a key to each of them. He would not care whether they would sleep alone or with their girlfriends. Zhang Tai knew that Zhang Zhao and Yang Miling were not drunk, either. They were free to make the choice. Zhang Tai then saw Yang Yuankong and Lu Su leave the rooftop with their girlfriends, however, he had not imagined that they went back to the rooftop in only a few minutes. What happened? Zhang Tai asked. I was chased out. Yang Yuankong touched his nose and said in an embarrassed way. Miling said you are not a good person. Lu Su shrugged towards Zhang Tai. Zhang Tai then burst out laughing before he summoned a female servant to take Yang Yuankong and Lu Su to their own bedrooms. Gradually, people started to leave the rooftop. They came and left happily and felt pretty cool about this party. Zhang Tai was the last one remaining on the rooftop. In the cold breeze, Zhang Tai watched the tranquil rooftop and the stars all over the sky as he took a deep breath. When Zhang Tai wanted to turn back and leave, he saw a girl in red skirt. Lan Yunqi was standing there. I thought you wouldn't come. Zhang Tai walked towards Lan Yunqi with a big smile. If I was here too early, how would you've cleared the debts of your junior sisters? Lan Yunqi showed the white of her eyes towards Zhang Tai. Soon after she moodily said that, not only Zhang Tai became slightly stunned, even Lan Yunqi paused for a moment. Am I jealous about those girls? Zhang Tai moved closer to her with a smile. You miss me, right? If not, you wouldn't have come and you wouldn't feel jealous about those girls. Seeing Zhang Tai's gleaming eyes drawing closer to her, Lan Yunqi became nervous again. Actually, she didn't want to be here, however, she eventually came here. Stop, Lan Yunqi shrieked out of tension as she moved 2 steps back. However, Zhang Tai kept walking forward like having not heard her words at all. He instantly grabbed Lan Yunqi's hands. Lan Yunqi struggled for a while, yet she failed to get out of Zhang Tai's grip. She then bit her lips and glared at Zhang Tai. Let me go, you be *****. You like me, right? Zhang Tai asked Lan Yunqi with gleaming eyes. How come? Lan Yunqi's face slightly blushed. Let's take a test. What test? Zhang Tai then instantly hugged Lan Yunqi tightly and kissed her lips. He started to suck forcefully. In a split second, Lan Yunqi's lips were broken through by Zhang Tai's tongue. Zhang Tai opened her purely white teeth with his tongue and mingled with her fragrant tongue at once. Since he pressed this girl under his body at the beginning, Zhang Tai had known that this girl was hot inside although looking cold. She looked like an icy tall mountain, yet her inside was like a volcano which was going to erupt. Perhaps, the daily environment and those people that she had contact with in daily life made her a bit depressive. She could not easily express her desire for love and to be conquered by a man. Actually, she wasn't different from the other girls. In some aspects, she even had stronger desire and demand. The more she was depressive, the stronger the desire would be. Those girls of Rose Association told Zhang Tai a rule: women were only women, they were neither goddesses nor sluts. They could be goddesses in someone's eyes or sluts in someone else's eyes, vice versa. The moment he caught sight of Lan Yunqi, Zhang Tai's heart had started to burn. He knew why Lan Yunqi was here. She was here to be conquered, physically or spiritually, nothing else. Soon after Zhang Tai put his tongue into Lan Yunqi's mouth, he had felt a pain on his tongue as it was bit by Lan Yunqi. She wanted to protest in this way as she didn't want to be defeated so fast by Zhang Tai. When Lan Yunqi bit Zhang Tai's tongue, they gazed at each other face to face, lips on lips, eyes to eyes. They could sense the heat from the other's breath. Lan Yunqi tried to move her head away, yet she failed as Zhang Tai was pressing her head and neck with his left hand. At the sight of the fury and shame in Lan Yunqi's eyes and sensing the growing biting strength from her teeth, Zhang Tai felt salty from his tongue. He then knew that his tongue was bleeding. Lan Yunqi knew it too. Under the firm gaze of Zhang Tai, Lan Yunqi only resisted for a few seconds. Then, her eyes became tender as she slowly loosened her bite and kept her eyes closed. Zhang Tai didn't do it excessively as he only kissed Lan Yunqi for a minute before left her lips. Lan Yunqi opened her eyes and stared at Zhang Tai with a blurred and complicated look. Zhang Tai stared at her too. The two people just stared at each other without saying anything. Those who assassinated you in Dragon Cave have deep-rooted power. Huayuan Palace is not as safe as it looks. You should take care of yourself. Lan Yunqi opened her mouth first. Then, she jumped onto the wall of the internal castle like a red cloud to evade from the hand that Zhang Tai stretched out towards her. Zhang Tai watched Lan Yunqi with a bit regret, like watching a cloud in the skyline. He was gripping this cloud just now, however, it had floated away in a blink of eye. Has Huayuan Palace found any clues? Not yet, but the Seniors Association of Huayuan Palace doubted that those people were related to demons. They might be demons' pieces in human race. They were stirring up troubles on continents. Demons? This answer really shocked Zhang Tai. However, Zhang Tai had considered the possibility of it being like that. So, he just furrowed his brows. Seeing Zhang Tai's considerate look, Lan Yunqi didn't say anything. Instead, she drew out a notebook from her sleeve and threw it to Zhang Tai. What's this? It's the defensive loopholes of Jinwu Castle. Your slaves are too weak and they don't have any experience in guarding and patrolling castle. There are many problems with guarding and patrolling. You've not fully exerted the function of the defensive facilities of the castle yet. In many powerhouses' eyes, your castle is no different from an empty one. Holding that volume, Zhang Tai felt warm inside. He knew that Lan Yunqi must have been here last night. How about accompanying me tonight? Zhang Tai put it straight. Lan Yunqi's face blushed at once as she glared at Zhang Tai and jumped off the wall. Watching the empty wall of the internal castle, Zhang Tai felt vacant. He then opened that volume and gazed at it for quite a while before putting it away. Zhang Tai then looked at his watch. It was 11:26 p.m. He then left the rooftop. Where are those guests? Zhang Tai called Sonia. Master, your guests have been taken to their own bedrooms, the female servant answered politely. After cleaning up the rooftop, you go to bed too. If someone comes for me, tell them I'm in the cultivation room. If it's not important, don't bother me. Yes, sir. 2 minutes later, Zhang Tai entered his hidden room and locked the door from inside. Before entering the secret tunnel, Zhang looked at his watch again, 11:29 p.m. Lowering his body, Zhang Tai walked along the secret tunnel. The moment he went out of the secret tunnel and arrived in the hinterland of Yunju Mountain, Zhang Tai had used his rapid-moving skill and dove into the subterranean river. With the effect of rapid-moving skill in water, Zhang Tai felt that he was covered by an invisible bubble, which didn't influence his senses underwater at all. Instead, with it, Zhang Tai felt that his resistance was close to zero. As a result, Zhang Tai raised his moving speed by 1 times in the subterranean river at once. After only 6 or 7 minutes, Zhang Tai had arrived at Ironstone's beach, which he was very familiar with. Without any hesitation, he directly entered the sea from the side of Ironstone's beach. After identifying the general direction, Zhang Tai arrived at the bottom of sea, where he opened the space tunnel that connected the sea water and the pool of chaos. At the bottom of the sea water, under the bliss of rapid-moving skill, Zhang Tai soon raised his moving speed to an amazing degree. While absorbing sea water, Zhang Tai obtained a constant driving force. With the bliss of rapid-moving skill, Zhang Tai's resistance in water was reduced to the minimum by that invisible bubble. With the reinforced night-viewing ability, Zhang Tai could see very far at the bottom of the sea. With super-powerful spiritual energy and sensitive sense towards current, Zhang Tai became more flexible than fish in water. All this led to the miraculous speed underwater. Zhang Tai was shooting forward in the sea like a rocket or a torpedo without causing any sound. Even Zhang Tai was amazed about that speed. He felt driving his fairy dragon T9 underwater. From the back-moving scenes at the bottom of the sea, Zhang Tai could judge his moving speed, definitely over 160 km per hour, which was almost equal to the fastest speed of fairy dragon T9. Zhang Tai felt like a wolf in the sea. The ocean was like a vast prairie. After less than 20 km away from Hidden Dragon Island, Zhang Tai had felt an ocean current beside him, the direction of which was the same as his movement, towards Jinhai City. Therefore, Zhang Tai cut into the ocean current at once. Being pushed by the ocean current, Zhang Tai felt entering an expressway as he sped up once again. He was an eagle now, as he felt flying in the ocean. Chapter 356, On the Way. The last passenger liner leaving the wharf of Hidden Dragon Island each day was 7 p.m., after which, passengers could only leave at 6 a.m. the following morning. Unless there was a special situation causing them to leave by airship, people could only leave Hidden Dragon Island on a passenger liner. The alleged special situations referred to the privilege for some members and agencies of the Zhang clan to access Hidden Dragon Island by airship. Of course, Zhang clan's airships could not be taken by commoners. Additionally, the airline to Hidden Dragon Island had not been opened, therefore, it was impossible for commoners to leave the island by airship. The airline distance between Hidden Dragon Island and Jinhai City was over 140 kilometers. It was a 4 to 5 hour journey on a passenger liner. Perhaps there wasn't only one person who could swim over 100 kilometers in water, such as some senior fighters, whose physique and swimming skills were exceptional. However, nobody across Hidden Dragon Island, even Huaiyuan Prefecture, could imagine that someone could swim back to continent from Hidden Dragon Island in less than 1 hour. Zhang Tai enjoyed moving super fast in the current. As he could hardly identify the direction he was heading in underwater, every few minutes he would leave the ocean current and stick his head out of water to relocate and modify his moving direction based on the positions of stars, the positions of some reefs which were exposed above water, and beacons. After moving underwater about 40 minutes at an amazing speed, the ocean current slowed down and divided into 2 currents, one towards left, the other toward right. Then, the divided ocean currents were further divided into smaller radioactive subterranean flows and finally became disordered swirling turbulent flows and undercurrents before disappeared. Sensing the change of the ocean current, Zhang Tai knew that he almost reached the continent based on his experiences. Zhang Tai then exposed his head out of the water and looked forward. In pitch-dark evening, Zhang Tai could see some sparse lamplight and beacons. He knew that the harbor of Jinhai City was right in front of him. Zhang Tai then looked at his watch again, 0:21 a.m., which meant it had been less than 1 hour since he left Jinwu Castle. After locking the references and the general direction, Zhang Tai dove in water again and swam towards a coast on the west of the wharf of Jinhai City. At 0:25 a.m., Zhang Tai finally climbed onto a beach on the west coast of Jinhai City. It was still less than an hour since he'd left Hidden Dragon Island. Because it was midnight, it was pretty tranquil on the surrounding beach. Besides sea waves and the rustling sound of some rows of coconut trees in the sea wind, Zhang Tai could only see some lamplight penetrating from the rooms of coastal villas along with barks. This area was the seafront residential quarter. Zhang Tai walked straight towards a coastal villa right in front of him, which only occupied less than 200 square meters with a small courtyard and a garage. It was only about 70 m away from the beach. A few days ago, it only took Zhang Tai 1,100 gold coins to buy this coastal villa. Of course, the name of the owner of this villa was Fei Yuao, instead of Zhang Tai. When he walked on the beach, Zhang Tai was wearing a mask. After passing by the beach of dozens of meters in length, Zhang Tai walked on the footpath of the bank. He then walked through a coastal highway which was 5 to 6 meters in width and stepped on his own grassland in the courtyard before he arrived in front of the door to the villa. Zhang Tai firstly checked the special traces that he left here and found they were not moved. He then dug out the key of the villa from a flower pot beside the door. After that, he opened the door and walked in. With a sound of caw, Zhang Tai closed the door from inside. Without turning on the lamps, he directly walked towards a washroom on the first floor. In the washroom, Zhang Tai rapidly used the soap to clean off the salty smell of seawater. After drying up, he put on the clothes that he had long prepared for tonight and came to the garage of the villa. There was also a fairy dragon T9 in the garage of the villa. Being different from the first blue fairy dragon T9, this one was black and under the name of Fei Yuao. Its number plate was YG807T. Zhang Tai opened the gate of the garage and jumped onto the car. Only after stepping down on the mechanical ignition pedal 4 times did he start the car. Half a minute later, when the steam pressure finger of this alcohol-fueled sport car reached the working state, Zhang Tai drove it out of the garage. After that, he parked it outside the garage. After locking the gate of the garage, he returned to the car and drove away from the villa. When he drove away from there, Zhang Tai peered at his watch, 0:32, the effect of the first rapid-moving skill had just disappeared. Over 10 seconds later, the booming sound of the turbine's steam-driven, heat-recollected, external combustion engine drifted down the coastal avenue of Jinhai City. At 0:37, Zhang Tai drove onto the highway from Jinhai City to Stars Viewing City. Few vehicles were on the highway in the evening. Additionally, with the help of his night viewing ability, it was no different to daytime. Having become very familiar with the road conditions and the vehicle, Zhang Tai accelerated to the maximal speed, 180 km per hour, in a split second. With super high spiritual energy, Zhang Tai felt time and moving objects slowing down. Additionally, he felt a weird, super powerful synergy between him and the fairy dragon T9, due to which, his driving intention, maneuvers, and the car's mechanical performances combined into a perfect process. In this state, Zhang Tai clearly knew how to completely display his driving intention through special maneuvers. He clearly understood how certain mechanical performances of this car could support him to accomplish specific maneuvers. Everything became transparent to Zhang Tai. Although in driving, Zhang Tai felt that he was running on foot as everything was at his will. Zhang Tai didn't know whether those people who liked to race cars also had the same feeling as him. But after thinking for a few seconds, Zhang Tai ascertained that nobody else could have such a feeling except him. Because if those racers had the same feeling as him, it would be meaningless for them to race cars. With the same driving intention, the same perfect maneuvers and the same ability to exert mechanical performances to the utmost based on road conditions, it would be a simple data comparison on mechanical performances of the cars. If so, racing cars would be meaningless. Zhang Tai liked high-speed movement in both water and on the land. Additionally, as he was drawing closer to Stars Viewing City, Zhang Tai's killing intent also started to boil like wildfire. A cool feeling started to rise from his heart. After having a party with his friends on Hidden Dragon Island, he traveled hundreds of kilometers under the moonlight so as to strike his enemy. How cool it was. Nana, you must be lying to us. These snake-shaped soul-chasing curves are so difficult to pass. I was told that even the car king could only shift 6 curves and had to decelerate at the 7th curve when he was alive. How could that person pass these snake curves perfectly at the speed above 100 km per hour in 20 seconds? Do you mean that someone was sharper than the former car king? Besides Zhang Tai, there were really some guys who came out in the evening. At this moment, some young racers were gathering on a slope beside a curve. They were talking about driving skills and that guy Nana had met here several days ago. None of them believed Nana's words. If there was truly such an able man, they would have long heard about him. With a terrifying makeup, Nana threw a contemptuous glance over them. I know you cannot do it, but it doesn't mean that nobody can do it. Was the Car King really that great? He died many years ago, yet you still mention him every day. If you are really that ambitious, you should try to surpass him like that guy I met that day. You should not take a dead man as your idol. Heh, heh. A 20-odd guy who looked embarrassed revealed an obscene smile as he gazed at Nana's boobs and butts and licked his lips. Only you have seen that guy. Of course, you can boost him as well as you can. According to you, he has been in Jinhai City for so many days, but you still don't find him. If you are really that ambitious, do you dare bet with me? For what? Nana raised her eyebrows and asked. I give you 2 weeks to find him. If you could find anyone who's greater than the Car King on passing these curves, you will be the winner. If you cannot make it, you are the loser. Then, in pale look, that man forcefully swallowed his saliva. What? Then, I will *CK you for a whole night. Wow. Hearing such a rude request, the other racers yelled, some of them even whistled. Even those tomboys started to kick up a fuss. With her eyes widely opened, Nana glared at that person ferociously. What if you lose the bet, Sharpay? 1. I can allow you to *CK me for the whole night. That man revealed a wicked smile. How about it? If you dare not, just admit that you were bragging just now. No matter what, you girls always like to blow. Sharpay's pun aroused more yelling. Nana's face was instantly covered with a layer of frost. Do you want to thrust me with that thing in your crotch? Fine, I accept your bet, but if you lose it, this mother will thrust you with this thing, dare you? Saying that, Nana waved a riot stick towards him. At the sight of that 30 centimeters long riot stick in her hand, many racers felt their anuses tightening. They became scared as Nana would definitely do it based on her temperament. Sharpay's face also turned pale. However, looking at that delicate face under the heavy makeup and her plump figure that had not yet been *ked by a man, he gritted his teeth. Fine, that's the deal. In 2 weeks, if anyone could finish snake movements in the soul-chasing curves, you will be the winner. If not, this mother will be *ked by you for a whole night. Nana also gritted her teeth. The two people then clapped to settle the bet. The moment they settled the bet, the booming sound of engine had drifted from afar on the mountain path. All the racers then exchanged glances with each other on the roadside slope. What? Is anyone absent? No, we're all here. Some fresh guys might join in. The car came here from Jinhai City. Wow. Listen to the engine, it's super fast. Fatty, guess what kind of car it is? It's Fairy Dragon T9. Listening to the sound of the engine, Nana's heart started to race. This was really a familiar sound. Then, a black shadow flashed by the road under the slope where the racers gathered, causing some tree leaves and weeds fly in the air. Wow, at least 160, is he killing himself? It's so dark. Idiot, not 160, listen to the engine carefully, it's 180. Arg, look, the T9 is arriving at the soul-chasing curves, yet it hasn't decelerated. Those racers fixed their widely opening eyes onto the moving lights of the Fairy Dragon T9 as they held their breaths. Sitting on the car, Zhang Tai had long noticed those racers gathered on the roadside slope with their attractive lamplight of cars from afar. For Zhang Tai, he had seen these kinds of people so many times, therefore, he was not curious about them at all and directly passed by them without any hesitation. It seems to be constantly sudden curves in front. Having passed by here one time before, Zhang Tai still remembered it. Additionally, there was also a sign on the roadside. Zhang Tai slightly decelerated like how a runner would do when he turned a corner. Zhang Tai didn't think too much. Based on this powerful synergy and instinct for controlling the car, he lowered his driving speed so that he could pass the curves rapidly under control. He had been so adapted to the maneuvering skills to reverse his steering wheel constantly and rapidly to shift aside into curves when he passed curves at high speed. It was as easy as tilting his body when he ran by a corner. In the whole process, Zhang Tai maintained his back wheel's traction at a critical point so that his car could reach a critical point on both flexibility and speed. Zhang Tai then chose the simplest and most efficient route based on the critical points and passed through 7 curves at a constant speed before accelerating away. It was pretty silent on the roadside slope at this moment. Because it was dark, nobody could see how Zhang Tai's car passed by those curves. However, Zhang Tai's lamplight told them the driving route of the car clearly. At that moment, everybody had an illusion. They were not lamps anymore, but a pair of huge eyes of a boa. Behind that pair of eyes, a boa swiftly twisted by the soul-chasing 7 curves in its special way. Those were truly snake-like movements, One guy shouted loudly. The best maneuvers, the best speed and the best route. Another guy mumbled like he'd been possessed by a ghost. Meanwhile, he drew the driving route of that pair of lamps. Geez, how long did he take? 18.2 seconds. Everybody was shocked. Watching the soul-chasing curves below impale, Sharpay's bones were quivering all over. Hearing his teeth collision, everybody else turned back. At the sight of Sharpay's weird expression and Nana who was walking towards him with a grin, a riot stick in hand, all the males present clamped their legs together. Nana's movements looked pretty sexy, but everybody started to tremble at this moment. Nana, how about, adding some oil to it? Sharpay revealed a smile which was even uglier than cry. I will take it as a prostatic examination. Nana sniggered, you're telling me that? Weren't you going to F***ck me? I will let you have a taste of how it feels to be F***ked. Half a minute later, hearing a shrill shriek from Sharpay who was lying on the back of his car and seeing Nana walking out from the back of Sharpay's car, all the other male hurriedly jumped back into their cars and dared not look at her anymore. F***ck. This woman is too terrifying. She's the last person that I want to cause trouble with. When these racers arrived at Stars Viewing City, the T9 that they saw just now was long gone. Black Fairy Dragon T9, there were at least 100 or 200 cars like this in Stars Viewing City. Additionally, they had not identified its plate number. Of course, they would not be able to find it. Chapter 357, Massacre in the Evening. Stars Viewing City was a city of light. When most people went to bed, many places in the city started to get boisterous. After entering Stars Viewing City, Zhang Tai decelerated. He could see prostitutes everywhere on the roadside who were attracting customers. Being low-key in the daytime, the red light district and brothels recovered their vitality at this moment. The Black Fairy Dragon T9 was quietly passing through the streets like a black spirit. It passed by the uproarious Milkway Hotel and finally parked in front of a high-end restaurant 500 meters away from the Milkway Hotel to the east. When he parked the car, Zhang Tai glanced at his watch, 2:16 a.m. The odometer of the Fairy Dragon T9 displayed 278 kilometers, which was almost the distance from Jinhai City to Stars Viewing City. The moment Zhang Tai parked the car, a waiter outside the restaurant opened the car's door for him politely. Zhang Tai got out of the car and took the parking service plate from the waiter. Fill the alcohol to the brim, I also need a chartered room. The waiter nodded. He quickly walked around the car to check if there were any scratches on it. After that, the waiter got into the car very carefully, closed the car's door, and drove Zhang Tai's car into the parking lot before filling the alcohol to the brim. Sir, follow me please. A waiter guided Zhang Tai into the restaurant. This senior restaurant adopted the garden design. All the dining rooms were independent pavilions and chartered rooms in the garden so that guests did not disturb each other. There was some distance between those pavilions and chartered rooms. The landscape design also had guests' privacy in consideration. Besides the lamplight out of the pavilions and chartered rooms, the whole garden looked very dim. Seeing all this, Zhang Tai nodded inside. Such a design not only met some people's requirements for a tranquil environment but was also convenient for doing something else besides eating food. Based on his sharp auditory sense, Zhang Tai heard sounds from some pavilions which were different from eating sounds, women's giggles and light groans. This place was perfect for lovers on a date. The waiter guided Zhang Tai into an independent, chartered room. After checking the environment there, Zhang Tai nodded inside again. Sir, our minimal consumption for a chartered room is 30 silver coins. If it's less than 30 silver coins, you should also pay 30 silver coins. The normal dinner time is 2 hours. If you stay here longer, you have to pay 2 more silver coins for an additional hour. Zhang Tai nodded. A few minutes later, Zhang Tai ordered his food and a bottle of alcohol. Then, he sat in the chartered room leisurely for a rest. Zhang Tai didn't order too much, which had been brought in within 10 minutes. Enjoy yourself, sir. Can you tell me where I can select girls? Zhang Tai revealed a donder-like wicked smile. Having been asked similar questions so many times, the waiter replied, if you need such a service, you can exit the rear door of the restaurant, then, turn left, after walking 100 m, turn right, there's a mansion called Fairy Beings. You will like it. Zhang Tai popped out a silver coin. That waiter grabbed it at once. After that, he left with a big smile and closed the door from outside. Zhang Tai glanced at his watch again, it was 2:24 a.m. After taking a deep breath, Zhang Tai sat back. Glancing at the food and drinks on the table, Zhang Tai closed his eyes. If you want to do something big, you have to be calm. Zhang Tai reminded himself inside, at a critical moment, you have to be patient. After closing his eyes for a while, Zhang Tai opened them. Seeing the food and drinks in front of him, he picked up his chopsticks. 10 minutes later, Zhang Tai stood up, took off his wind coat and hung it on a hanger beside the table. Asking waiter where to find women, eating food, yet not opening the bottle of alcohol, leaving a wind coat, although being trivial clues, if someone really entered his chartered room after Zhang Tai left, they would definitely reach a conclusion. Zhang Tai probably had gone out to look for women, he might be back. In this way, Zhang Tai guaranteed the only possible conclusion they could reach. After arranging everything in the room, Zhang Tai focused his spiritual energy and triggered the rune effect of rapid moving skill in his mind. After being triggered, one of the 6 gods' runes of rapid moving skill radiated golden light at once. The rune reversed, upside down, and started to pour down inside Zhang Tai's body like a golden rain of light. As a result, each cell in Zhang Tai cheered up like drinking ice-cold plum syrup in summer days. Under the bliss of rapid-moving skill, Zhang Tai instantly felt he'd become pretty light while the land became an elastic huge spring. As long as he used a bit strength, he could move himself a great distance. Effect of rapid-moving skill. Increase moving speed by 120% on the basis of the original moving speed. The rune effect of rapid moving skill in battle would weaken by 80%, which means that Zhang Tai could still pace up by 24% in battle. Zhang Tai opened the window of the chartered room and looked at the high wall of the restaurant. Putting his hands on the windowsill slightly, he jumped over 4 m out of the window in a way which was much swifter than a leopard. After landing his feet on the wall, he instantly jumped off the wall and entered the endless darkness. It was less than 600 m from here to the Zhen clan mansion of Heaven's Cold City. Based on his memory, Zhang Tai flashed across tranquil alleys in the darkness. 1 minute later, Zhang Tai had already arrived at the corner of the west wall of Zhen clan mansion of Heaven's Cold City. In a split second, he had jumped into the courtyard of the mansion like a rock flapping its wings. At this moment, Zhang Tai was wearing a black cold-resistant cap which was especially for pioneers, only exposing his gleaming, icy eyes. Besides, he was wearing a set of black tights and a tactical vest of pioneers, a heavy pioneer sword in hand. This sword was long and sharp. It was very destructive. Additionally, its body had gone through matte treatment, therefore, it would not reflect any light in darkness. Zhang Tai obviously had turned himself into a killer at that moment. The Zhen clan mansion of Heaven's Cold City could never have imagined such a malefic figure would arrive here. The courtyard of the Zhen clan mansion of Heaven's Cold City occupied several thousand square meters. In the middle of the courtyard was a 5-floor traditional Chinese building. At this moment, it was pitch black inside the mansion, except for some sparse burning lamps. With the effect of one step, one scenery and rapid-moving skill, Zhang Tai flashed across light and darkness like a gray shadow. In a split second, he had already passed by 100 m and arrived beside a fountain in the courtyard. In a split second, a binding chain flew out of the place between his eyebrows. Meanwhile, Zhang Tai stabbed his sword into that fountain with the help of night viewing ability, causing a great amount of bloody water spray out of the fountain. One solved, there's another one. Zhang Tai mumbled as he flashed away in the darkness. In a few seconds, he had arrived below some high pine trees. Zhang Tai sent out one binding chain again as he jumped up from the ground. 1 second later, Zhang Tai grabbed a rapid wind 6 steel-made armor-breaking bolt with no tail feather and directly penetrated through that person's heart by the sharp triangular head of his bolt and nailed him onto the trunk. Eyes widely opened, that guy being nailed onto the trunk glared at Zhang Tai out of fear, seemingly being curious about how Zhang Tai knew where he was hiding and how Zhang Tai made him still all of a sudden. At the same time, a lot of blood spurted out of his mouth. Before that man died, his eyes were filled with curiosity. Zhang Tai then glanced at this man's ear. F***CK, as I have predicted, they are the assassinators. After swearing inside, Zhang Tai slowly slid down the pine tree and directly darted towards the main building of the Jin clan mansion at a terrifying speed. At the entrance of the main building, there was a room still with dim light, where the guards of the mansion were on night duty. Zhen Xiong, you need to take a round outside. Recently, we need to be especially careful, Master has delivered the order, we'd better keep trouble out of there. The moment Zhang Tai arrived there, he had heard a sound. He then stopped outside the window of that room. Although those inside the room could not see him, he could clearly hear their conversation. An aroma of boiled meat drifted out of the room. Zhang Tai guessed that they were eating inside. I don't think anything will happen in Stars Viewing City. Our Jin clan has been doing business here for many years, yet we've not met trouble at all. There are only bitches and slaves here. Additionally, we've got 2 more people outside. We've just checked it 10 minutes ago. It's pretty safe. Zhang Tai heard a slightly lazy voice, followed by a series of chewing sound. It's hard to say. Some days ago, some clan members went to Hidden Dragon Island to form Battle Chi. Why would they come back so fast? Have they formed Battle Chi in such a short period? I was told. Shut up, Zhen Xiong. Have you forgotten about the master's ban? Nobody in the mansion is allowed to talk about the affairs of the Jin clan. The same voice sounded, Master is always in a bad mood these days. If he heard that you were talking about that, you would be in big trouble. Do you want to have a go in the worm jail of Heaven's Cold City? Hearing this, the other 2 kept silent. They even stopped eating. The air in the room seemed freezing. A few seconds later, Zhang Tai heard the same man made a hollow laugh. I was just saying. Only the 3 of us know about it. Additionally, it's in the mansion. It's not a violation strictly, but Brother Blade was right. I will watch out. Laoyi, let's go out for another check. With the sound of moving chairs, someone seemed to be standing up, but before they came out, Zhang Tai had flashed in. Immediately, he had released binding chains and bound them all in a split second. As Zhang Tai had predicted, LV8 powerhouses were not common in any place. Jin clan of Heaven's Cold City was not so luxurious as to use a LV8 powerhouse as a sentry. It was already a huge consumption for them to employ some LV6 or LV7 guys. However, those below LV8 were nothing more than bound chicks in front of his preliminary binding chain. 2 people in the room had stood up and were going to walk out of the room. The remaining one was holding a pair of chopsticks. None of them could have imagined that they would be attacked. Eyes wide open, they gazed at Zhang Tai, who was pitch black all over. However, they could not move, or even utter any words. They all looked pretty shocked. They didn't even know what happened to their bodies as they became stiff all of a sudden. Besides rolling their eyeballs and blinking their eyes, they could do nothing else. Under the mask, Zhang Tai sniggered. After his spiritual energy was reinforced, the power of his binding chains also increased, causing them stiff longer. The moment the binding chains hit them, Zhang Tai knew that even the one with the most powerful spiritual energy had to wait at least 8 minutes before recovering free movement. This period is enough for me to do a lot of things. I know you can hear me. You can choose the way to blink your eyes as a reply to my questions. If you wish to answer my question, you can rapidly blink your eyes several times. The three people just gazed at him while nobody blinked. Zhang Tai then casually waved his sword towards the neck of the man on the chair, causing his neck spurting blood like a broken water pipe. In only a few seconds, that man had become a bloody man as he lowered his head and died on the chair. The other two's eyes almost popped out of their heads as their eyes were full of fear. I ask you one more time. People who would like to answer my questions can rapidly blink your eyes several times. The one on the left responded a bit slowly, seemingly still being hesitated. Zhang Tai then directly penetrated through his heart with his sword. The last one alive was Jin Xiong. I'll repeat myself the last time. Anybody who would like to answer my questions can rapidly blink your eyes several times. Zhang Tai asked leisurely. Jin Xiong rapidly blinked his eyes. Chapter 358, A Bloody Night. After being told some pieces of information that he wanted, Zhang Tai stabbed Jin Xiong to death directly. Looking at Jin Xiong's disbelieving expression, Zhang Tai's eyes radiated an icy light. I didn't promise to not kill you after you answered my questions. The blade was covered with blood beads. After wiping the blade on Jin Xiong's clothes, Zhang Tai knelt down and took out of a bunch of keys. Then, he left the room quietly. What Jin Xiong had said was not absolutely true, but definitely not fully fake, at least he knew more than Zhang Tai. The key was that Zhang Tai confirmed that piece of information. When he was attacked on Hidden Dragon Island, a batch of people truly went to Huaiyuan Prefecture from Jin clan of Heaven's Cold City in the name of forming battle qi. They only stayed in the Jin clan mansion of Stars Viewing City for one day, then, they went to Hidden Dragon Island. After the assassination, they came back to the Jin clan mansion in batches before leaving Stars Viewing City and Huaiyuan Prefecture immediately after. Jin Xiong was curious that it was not enough for them to form battle qi in such a short period at all. Zhang Tai sniggered inside. Those members of the Jin clan were obviously there to assist those B***stards who were killed by me. After knowing that their plan failed, those people had to leave Hidden Dragon Island with an excuse. It seems that the Jin clan assigned two powers to act in Hidden Dragon Island, one in public, one in the dark. Those average people in the mansion only knew that power acting in public. For that power in the dark, only the master of the Jin clan and a minority knew it. This explained why the master delivered the order to forbid his clan members from talking about this affair. They even arranged hidden guards. Before this event, they rarely used hidden guards in the evening. Since that event happened, they started to be meticulous. The only reason for this is that they've done something bad. The moment he recalled what he and his elder brother encountered that day, Zhang Tai's killing intent boiled up like magma once again. After slightly rotating the key, Zhang Tai quietly pushed open the gate of the main building. He flashed in and locked the gate from inside. The main building occupied almost 2,000 square meters. Besides being available for the accommodation of clan members, this building was also the trade base of the Jin clan of Heaven's Cold City in Huaiyuan Prefecture. The Jin clan of Heaven's Cold City had many businesses such as slave trading, weapons trading with Huaiyuan Palace, and ocean transporting to name a few. It was pitch dark in the mansion, however, with his night viewing ability, the moment Zhang Tai entered the gate, he sensed the magnificence of the lobby. Zhang Tai didn't go upstairs. Instead, he flashed by the lobby like a shadow and moved dozens meters forward along a corridor on the left of the lobby. Then, he arrived at the lounge where the other guards rested. Of course, besides the 5 guards outside the mansion, there were more guards inside the mansion. Almost as soon as Zhang Tai flashed in, he had crashed with a yawning man who had walked out of the washroom and was pulling on the zipper on his trousers. Zhang Tai instantly stretched out his hand from the dark and pinched his neck. Before that man could say anything, he had been killed by Zhang Tai's iron blood battle qi and collapsed onto the ground like a piece of spaghetti. Several meters away, Zhang Tai noticed the door of a room which was narrowly open. A slight snore drifted out from inside. He then rushed in. 10 seconds later, Zhang Tai closed that door quietly, allowing no sounds to escape the room anymore. There were some more bedrooms beside this one. Zhang Tai walked inside quietly one by one. By slightly releasing his iron blood battle qi onto the locks, Zhang Tai opened the locks without causing any sound. 5 minutes later, when Zhang Tai left the first floor and arrived at the second floor of the mansion, nobody alive was left on first floor anymore. That meant all the guards of the Jin clan mansion of Heaven's Cold City had been wiped out by Zhang Tai. 2 little emergencies happened during this period. There was one time when Zhang Tai opened a door. Due to lack of lubricating oil, the door slightly creaked. As a result, a very alert guard was woken up. He instantly jumped up from the bed, however, everything stopped by then. Although Zhang Tai was still several meters away from that guy who was ready for attack, after releasing his binding chain, he had already fixed that guy. Before the other guards woke up, Zhang Tai had already swiftly sliced all of their necks. The room became quiet at once. The second was not an emergency strictly, as those guys in a room were not sleeping at all. Instead, they were gambling. Zhang Tai had heard the sounds inside the door from outside. This was actually an attack by force in the fastest way. From Zhang Tai darted into the room and sent their heads flying almost at the same time. It only took Zhang Tai less than 2 seconds. Besides the residences of these guards on the first floor, there were some warehouses and a basement which stored valuables. As it was not the right moment to collect the treasures in the warehouses, Zhang Tai didn't do that. Instead, after clearing out all the guards on first floor, he rushed onto the second floor. There were so many offices, conference rooms, and reference rooms on the second floor, which seemed to be used for businesses. Zhang Tai searched each room on the second floor, yet found nobody at all. Therefore, he rushed to the third floor. Zhang Tai in the dark was like the king of terror, as he was bloody wherever he was. When he arrived at the third floor, he took a look around all the rooms. The soft and thick carpet silenced his footsteps. When he heard any sound of breath inside a room, he would quietly open the door with his iron blood battle chi and walk in, killing the ones inside before he walked out. All the members inside the mansion was male, therefore, Zhang Tai didn't feel any mental burden about killing them. Since the Jin clan wanted to kill him and his elder brother, the resentment between him and Jin clan had been cemented. Additionally, the Jin clan acted mysteriously and viciously. According to Lan Yunqi, the powers that carried out assassinations and destructions among mankind always had deep backgrounds and probably had been bought over by demons. For such a clan, of course, Zhang Tai wouldn't feel merciful about them at all. Zhang Tai swept over the third floor very quickly. He then arrived at the fourth floor. The management of the mansion lived on the fourth floor and up. After taking a look around the fourth floor, Zhang Tai found nobody in most rooms. He then slightly furrowed his brows. Aren't those guys here today? What a coincidence. When Zhang Tai arrived at the outside of the last bedroom on the fourth floor, he heard some strange sound from inside. He then opened the lock and entered silently. The room was radiating crimson light, which looked a bit weird. The moment Zhang Tai entered, he had heard the sound clearly. He then passed by the parlor and opened another door. Then, he was shocked. A woman was naked, mouth clogged with a piece of cloth. Her neck, feet and hands were tied onto an iron bed with iron rings, while a man was moving up and down on her body. Meanwhile, he was stabbing that woman with a 30 centimeters long iron wire. B*TCH, is that cool? Is it cool? I'm stabbing you with 2 items, is that cool? Oh, right, faster, arg, narrower. This father has long since wanted to f*CKU. Did you think you were that sharp by seducing the master, arg? There's some places where you cannot go in this mansion. Some things you should not ask. You must not have imagined that you are a gift from the master. It's really much more comfortable to f*CKU than slaves. The man was talking in a low voice while lying on that woman's body like a wild beast who was eating. The woman struggled due to a great pain. The iron rings had become extremely bloody, however, the woman's struggle brought greater pleasure to this man. Seeing this, Zhang Tai swore furiously, B*****. That guy was not weak, he was at least LV6. The moment he heard Zhang Tai's voice, he instantly popped away from that woman and flashed several meters away. At the sight of Zhang Tai in pitch-black clothes and full of killing intent, his pupils contracted at once. He was 20-odd years old and looked handsome with a bluish-white face, however, he looked evil and ferocious. From Zhang Tai's look, he knew that Zhang Tai must not be an average person and he definitely could not defeat Zhang Tai. Even if he called for help, Zhang Tai would have killed him long before others arrived. "Did someone hire you to kill me? If you leave here, I will pay you double the amount as compensation." "You might not know that, my dad is." That guy pretended to be calm, however, his head had already flown in the air while his eyes looked amazed. A single thought went through his mind, so fast. After chopping off that man's head, Zhang Tai came to one side of the girl and took out of that piece of cloth from her mouth. She glanced at that headless corpse, then, she moved her eyes on Zhang Tai. With a miserable smile, tears rolled down her face. Zhang Tai undid the iron rings on her neck and limbs and put her down. After checking her body rapidly, he sighed inside and stood up. This girl would die. Although only minor wounds could be seen on her skin, the B*****'*'''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''''*' Star's iron wire had made her guts like a sieve. Zhang Tai tore off a piece of curtain and covered her naked, bloody body before left. "There is, in study room, hidden cell, on the 5th floor." Zhang Tai stopped and turned around his head as he heard the woman uttering those words. He simply nodded and rushed out. Those sons of B***cheese. Chapter 359, Attack Head-On. After reaching the 5th floor, Zhang Tai finally understood why he had only met a few people on the 4th floor. It was because most of the people living on the 4th floor were attending a conference on the 5th floor. The lamplight and human voices faintly came out of the conference room. In the corridor outside the conference room were two tough men. By the time Zhang Tai had reached the conference room on the 5th floor, he had already cleaned up the other places on the floor. This conference room was the last place with living people in the Zhen clan mansion of Heaven's Cold City. As he waited by the corridor, Zhang Tai thought about the saying plans change. His plan had been to break through each area of the mansion under the cover of darkness, however, the plan failed when he reached the 5th floor. After glancing down the corridor swiftly, Zhang Tai hurriedly put his head back. Standing behind the wall at the corner of the wall, he started to calculate the distance from where he was standing to the end of this corridor. It was longer than 50 meters. Over such a distance, his binding chains were ineffective as it was greater than the maximal effective distance of the binding chains. The corridor was the only way to get from his current position to where the two tough men stood. The corridor was brightly lit, which meant Zhang Tai could not hide himself at all. The moment he appeared, he would definitely be noticed. Even if he darted at his fastest speed, it would still take him 2 seconds to be there. This period was enough for the two guards to give a warning to those inside the room. I don't know how many people were in there. Could there be any powerhouses above LV-10? There are 3 options for me to choose from: attack head-on, give up, or stay here to wait for a better chance. Zhang Tai peered at his watch, 2:53 a.m. Zhang Tai only considered it for a second. Then, he arranged his equipment and put his sword back in the castle of black iron. He then took out some Rapid Wind 6 steel armor-breaking bolts with no tail feathers and inserted all the armor-breaking bolts into the slots of his tactical vest. After doing all that, he took a deep breath and dashed out. Zhang Tai chose the first option, attack by force. Within a second, Zhang Tai moved forward more than 20 meters. At the same time, he threw out 2 armor-breaking bolts. Without even having a chance to send a warning, the 2 guards' heads had exploded like watermelons. A red liquid sprayed out of their heads, forming 2 fresh flowers on the wall. Sonic boom. Not until after the 2 heads were exploded by armor-breaking bolts were air-torn sounds heard in the corridor. With iron blood battle chi boiling like a dragon in his body, Zhang Tai's body started to burn like a fire had been lit beneath him. Almost as soon as the air-torn sounds were heard, Zhang Tai ferociously patted on the wooden door of the conference room with his hands. Compared to the gentle iron blood battle chi that he used to open locks earlier, now it had become unrivaled, untamed, and ferocious. After being struck, the oak door instantly shattered into wooden pieces. At the same time, with huge strength and speed, those broken wooden chips were blasted into the conference room. This process only took Zhang Tai less than 2 seconds. After noticing the sounds outside the room, those people inside the room only had, at most, a second to respond. In such a short period, most people inside the conference room had not responded before numerous shattered wooden chips had already been blasted in like hidden weapons and bolts accompanied by the ferocious chi of Iron Blood battle chi. In a split second, a shrill shriek was heard in the conference room. Meanwhile, those facing the door had been covered with shattered wooden chips and spikes in different sizes, causing great chaos in the room. Alongside the numerous wooden chips, Zhang Tai rushed in. In a situation like this, every second counted for Zhang Tai. At this critical moment, Zhang Tai's mind was calm once again as he started to drive his spiritual energy at full speed. 0.01 seconds after he entered the conference room, Zhang Tai had already clearly observed everything in the room. The scene was like a fixed painting in his mind. There were 8 people in the conference room. The 3 of them facing the door had already fallen onto the ground with blood spurting all over. Many wounds had appeared all over their bodies due to shattered wooden chips. One of the wounds was fatal as it had hit the main artery of his neck. After being cut open, the artery started to spray blood like water coming out of a faucet. That person then covered that wound with one hand. The other 2 were not that heavily wounded. Their wounds were not fatal for the time being. An eye of one of them was stabbed with a toothpick-long wooden pike. He was lying on the floor with a pained expression while the other one watched on, stunned. Even with a lot of wounds on his body, he was still confused about what had happened, even now. Besides the above 3, 2 more people were sitting on the table. They didn't stand up, instead, they just looked a bit surprised. The other 3 had already stood up. One 50-odd-year-old man had only stood up. The one beside him stood ready to attack. The fastest one was already charging towards Zhang Tai. In the next 0.01 seconds, Zhang Tai started his first round of attack, binding chains. He released his binding chains so fast. Almost the moment Zhang Tai locked someone with his eyes, the binding chains had already flown out of the place between Zhang Tai's 2 eyebrows. Because of what happened previously, tonight could not be settled through peaceful means. Zhang Tai was determined to win the battle at the risk of his life. The binding chains instantly hit the 8 people in the conference room. Due to the performance of the binding chains, whenever they took effect on someone, Zhang Tai would know how long their effects would last. However, if that person being struck was above LV7, the binding chain would be ineffective to him. The moment the binding chains flew out, Zhang Tai clearly knew the fighting strength of those people in the room. After being struck by binding chains, 5 of them instantly lost their ability to move. The other 3 were not influenced at all. That was to say, 3 of them were at least LV8. Fortunately, among the 3 people not influenced by the binding chains, one had been wounded, the one whose eye had been stabbed by a wooden spike. One was charging towards Zhang Tai and the third man was that 50-odd guy who was standing by the seat of the host. Zhang Tai had completely figured out the situation in the room within the first 0.02 seconds after rushing into the room and accomplishing his first round of attack with the binding chains. 5 of the 8 people completely lost their fighting strength and couldn't move at all. The shortest recovery time for one of the 5 fixed people was 4 minutes. For the remaining 3 people, one had lost half of his fighting strength while the other 2 men's fighting strengths were unknown. After figuring out the current situation, Zhang Tai became clearer on his next objective: kill that one who had lost half of his fighting strength. For the other 2, if either of them were above LV10 and he could not solve the fight in 4 minutes, he had to escape. If he kept fighting a real powerhouse here for too long, he might attract the troop. If so, the situation would only get worse. I hope there's no LV10 guys here, Zhang Tai thought to himself. Then, he rushed towards that man whose eye had been wounded. Time started to run again. After Zhang Tai completely figured out the situation in the conference room and completed the first round of attack with binding chains, the 3 people who could move didn't know that 5 of the 8 people had lost their ability to fight and were even unable to utter a single word. In the first second after Zhang Tai rushed into the conference room, the person charging at Zhang Tai had already punched towards Zhang Tai. Seeing that, Zhang Tai directly kicked onto that person's palm. Meanwhile, he turned around and rushed towards that man with a wounded eye. In the next second after Zhang Tai rushed in, "Chi-hai, watch out," the man standing by the seat of the host shouted loudly as he charged towards Zhang Tai with a grim look on his face. At this moment, Zhang Tai was still being aided by the rapid-moving skill, ergo Zhang Tai could still move 20% quicker than usual. Zhang Tai was moving at a terrifying speed. Receiving that man's warning, the guy with a wounded eye rolled aside before even looking at Zhang Tai clearly, ignoring the sharp pain in his eye and panic in his heart. If it were any of others, when in such a situation, they would hardly attack that escaping guy anymore as they had to face the real powerhouse's attack. However, Zhang Tai could. In the third second after Zhang Tai rushed in, when he faced that 50-odd man's attack with a punch, Zhang Tai threw an armor-breaking bolt at that escaping man. A shrill shriek, a booming crash, and the air-torn sound of that armor-breaking bolt sounded in the third and the fourth second. In the fourth second after Zhang Tai rushed in, that man rushing forwards and Zhang Tai were pushed back by each other's ferocious chi at the same time. When Zhang Tai was sent flying back in the air, 2 more armor-breaking bolts appeared in his hands. The first LV8 powerhouse whose hand had been kicked by Zhang Tai was instantly sent flying 10 meters back and directly hit the wall of the conference room. Soon after, he recovered the boiling chi and blood in his body and prepared to launch the second round of attacks. Suddenly, his head had exploded. In the 5th second, after landing on the ground, Zhang Tai sprung out at that 50-odd man. In the 6th second, after 2 rounds of lightning-fast fighting, Zhang Tai received that man's hit with his chest while he smashed his iron blood fist onto that man's lower abdomen. Zhang Tai spat out a mouthful of blood. Comparatively, that man's eyes, ears, mouth and nose spurted out blood at the same time. Iron blood battle chi. Who are you? That man's hoarse voice suddenly stopped. Lowering his head, he watched his lower abdomen with an incredulous look and found that the blade of a pitch-black sword had already fully entered his body. How did this happen? Weren't his hands empty just now? Where did he get the sword from? Iron blood battle chi? He's Zhang. The 50-odd man had so many questions before his death. In the 7th second, Zhang Tai had chopped off his head and sent it flying in the air. The head-on attack then came to an end. Zhang Tai knelt down on the floor at once and spat out another mouthful of blood. Chapter 360, Secret of the Jin Clan. Kneeling down on the floor, Zhang Tai coughed out several mouths of blood and panted for about half a minute before picking himself up. Although it was a short fight, it was the most dangerous among all the fights that Zhang Tai had experienced. Before breaking open the door of the conference room, he didn't know if there was a powerhouse above LV10 in here. He didn't know the outcome of this battle until he finished the battle at the risk of his own life. Fortunately, there were no powerhouses above LV10 in the conference room. Those who could pose threats to him were 2 LV8 powerhouses and 1 LV9 powerhouse. It was already a high configuration with 2 LV8 powerhouses and 1 LV9 powerhouse in a clan mansion. In an army, only troops above regiments could enjoy such a high configuration. Over the intense 10 seconds, Zhang Tai had used all of his top fighting skills: rapid moving skill, binding skill, iron blood fist, precise throwing, space teleportation function of the castle of black iron. Additionally, he had become very strike-resistant as he had eaten a lot of iron body fruits, plus his fast recovery ability with the help of preliminary recovery body. Therefore, he was able to kill the 2 LV8 guys and 1 LV9 guy in a short period. At this moment, although Zhang Tai won the fight, he had also suffered severe inner wounds as he had chosen to resist the LV9 powerhouse's smack face-to-face despite the great number of iron body fruits that he had eaten. However, compared to the wounds that Zhang Tai had suffered, that LV9 guy was much more miserable after being hit by Zhang Tai's unrivaled, ferocious iron blood battle chi and iron blood fist. The fight had come to an end after Zhang Tai's fist smashed into that man's body. If that man knew that Zhang Tai was practicing iron blood fist and had already formed his iron blood battle chi, he would have never allowed Zhang Tai's punch to touch him. Due to his blind confidence and lack of intel on Zhang Tai, the LV9 powerhouse lost the battle in the shortest period. Wound for wound, life for life, and gain the advantage by the terrifying power of his iron blood fist and his great strike-resistant body. That was the best way to kill that LV9 powerhouse in the shortest period. Zhang Tai finally succeeded. Not until then did Zhang Tai pick up his sword and walk towards the remaining 5 people who were still bound. Zhang Tai didn't explain anything, he directly ignored the shocking and fearful looks of the 5 people who didn't even know what had happened to their bodies. With 1 slash per person, Zhang Tai finished the final cleanup of the Jin clan mansion in Heaven's Cold City within several seconds, just like killing chickens. A dense, bloody smell drifted out of the conference room. Nobody in the Jin clan mansion of Heaven's Cold City was left alive. As Zhang Tai had become accustomed to collecting spoils of war since he was in the Iron Blood camp, of course, he planned to grab such a great chance. Zhang Tai didn't know why these B***stards held a conference here at midnight. But, obviously, those present were the management of the Jin clan, at least with a high status. Because Jin clan mansion was also a trade base, they were definitely rich guys. After taking a round in the conference room for a circle leisurely, Zhang Tai had collected a lot of spoils of war, 8 purses, 6 rings, various high-end wristwatches, and pocket watches, etc. Although there were a few gold coins in the purses, there were a lot of paper notes, which were worth more than 30,000 gold coins in total. 5 of the 6 finger rings were inlaid with valuable jewelries and diamonds, while the remaining one had an eccentric but simple shape. The eccentric one was not made of gold, neither was it laid with glamorous jewelries. Besides, there were not too many grains on it. However, 3 pieces of a pale blue metal, the size of little finger, were inlaid in 3 places of the ring. They were on the same level with the ring on the surface. If one did not observe it carefully, one might not easily notice the metal inside. Although it looked simple, when Zhang Tai held it, he felt weird. This ring was from that LV9 guy's finger. Given that guy's position in the conference room, he should be the master of this mansion. Of course, his ring was not average. Zhang Tai weighed that ring while the same familiar sense reappeared. It reminded Zhang Tai of that rune equipment that he had sold in the auction house of Kalar City, Ring of Vitality. What a great fortune! Zhang Tai yelled inside as he injected his spiritual energy into the ring. Ring of Land Protection. With this ring, the wearer can survive greater attacks and possess greater strength. The attributes of this rune equipment were as follows. Reduce physical harm by 6%. Increase physical explosive power by 145 kilograms. Made by Zhang Dingfeng, the rune manufacturer of Huayuan Palace. Ha ha ha, good item. Taking off his mask, Zhang Tai grinned. As this item could not be exposed to the public, he directly threw this ring and the other spoils into the castle of black iron. For Zhang Tai, the gold coins and paper notes worth more than 30,000 gold coins really helped Zhang Tai a lot at a moment when his disposable income was running low. Several days ago, Zhang Tai bought slaves and made preparations for this action. Later on, he added some necessary items for his castle on Yunju Mountain. As a result, he'd almost used up all the money from selling all-purpose medicament. Those vials of all-purpose medicament that Zhang Tai moved out of the castle of black iron had almost all been sold out. Therefore, he could only sell a very limited number of vials each day. However, the latest all-purpose medicament had not been well fermented yet, therefore, he'd lacked money recently. He had to wait at least 20 days before he turned the latest all-purpose medicament into gold coins, namely, late July or early August. What was more, Zhang Tai still owed 460,000 gold coins to Long Wind Business Group for building the castle. Although the 30,000 odd gold coins were not too much for Zhang Tai, it could still relieve Zhang Tai's current problem. Actually, for more than 99% of people, they might not be able to make 30,000 gold coins over their whole lives. After gaining more than 30,000 gold coins and a rune equipment, Zhang Tai became excited once again. Even his wounds were not that painful anymore. After circling around the conference room, Zhang Tai collected all the valuable items. He then left. There was a door inside the conference room. Being driven by curiosity, Zhang Tai opened that door and found it led to a study room. When he remembered that woman downstairs said that there was a hidden room in the study room, Zhang Tai started to look for it carefully in the study room. Except for Zhang Tai, nobody else was alive in the whole building. Additionally, it was midnight. Zhang Tai didn't worry about making noises at all, therefore, he started to search the room incautiously. Taking apart the sofa, moving away the desk, pushing away the furniture in the study, and pushing off all the books on the bookcase one row by another. When Zhang Tai pushed off the book from the bookcase next to one wall of the study room and was going to push down the bookcase, he finally saw a handle-like switch on the wall behind the books. Zhang Tai lightly pulled the handle. As a result, the whole bookcase slid away, exposing a narrow entrance. A sword in hand and an armor-breaking bolt in another hand, Zhang Tai carefully walked in that entrance. There was a same narrow and dim passageway inside the entrance which only allowed one person in. It felt like that in the apartment left by Donder to him. On both sides of the passageway were the walls of the building. Hidden between those walls, this passageway was really secret. The passageway was paved with a thick carpet. Therefore, Zhang Tai didn't make any sound as he walked on it. Green fluorite lamps were hanging on the walls every several meters, which made the whole passageway extremely gloomy. Without encountering any attack, Zhang Tai walked dozens of meters and made 2 turns before entering a hidden room. The area of this hidden room was less than 20 square meters. The moment Zhang Tai entered this hidden room, he had glanced at the statue on the sacrificial altar of the hidden room. The major part of that status was a monster covered with crocodile-like scales with a unicorn on its head and a tail. In the middle of its forehead was a slim eye. The monster was standing like a person while hugging a naked woman with miserable look. Additionally, it entwined that woman tightly, using its tail with its huge genital into the vagina of the woman. This statue was pretty weird, evil, lascivious, and dark. Staring at that statue, Zhang Tai was shocked both physically and mentally. He didn't understand its meaning, but the unicorn, the tail, and the 3 eyes indicated its status instantly: demon. Only evil demons looked like that. A faint bloody smell drifted from the sacrificial altar under the statue. Smelling it, Zhang Tai then glanced at the shape of the altar and the brown stains on the altar. He instantly imagined how a live person was killed in the dark manner in front of that statue. Zhen clan truly colluded with demons. Besides the sacrificial altar and this statue, there was a cabinet beside the altar. After glancing at that statue, Zhang Tai directly walked in front of the cabinet and opened it. At the sight of the items in the cabinet, Zhang Tai's heart started to pound ferociously at once.